Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Deku got the Deadpool Quirk? Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
There is a population of superpowered humans in Japan and the rest of the world. About 80% of people were impacted. Some had strong abilities, some had weak ones, and some were just plain strange. In this tale, a boy will acquire a power never before seen, and he may view it as a blessing or a terrible curse. A 5-year-old boy with curly green hair and freckles was playing with a small girl who had brown hair and round pink cheeks in a small house district. The boy was playing with a ball in the streets. Before the girl's quirk unintentionally caused the ball to float across the street, the two kids continued playing catch. Since the light was red, the girl pursued it, but all of a sudden, a car sped down the street and headed directly for her. Unwilling to watch his new friend die, the boy ran to her and shoved her aside, only to be run over by the car in her place. The car swerved and collided with a light pole, and the boy fell to the ground, his tiny body shattered. The boy was taken to the hospital for treatment after heroes, police officers, and paramedics arrived on the scene and picked up the children. But a miracle occurred. The boy's quirk came into play during the procedure, and all of his wounds healed, and in a matter of seconds, there weren't any visible scratches. After that, the boy was sent home to his mother, who was glad he was all right and delighted that he had a quirk. However, the boy wasn't particularly pleased because, as you can see, he was made to feel that his female friend wasn't so fortunate. A decade later, time jump, on his way to his junior high school, the same boy was strolling down the street. Over the years, he had undergone significant change. He stood about 5 feet 9 inches or even 6 feet 0 inches now. His eyes were more angular and sly, looking very fox-like, his skin was tanned, his hair was spiked, and he had elongated canine teeth. He also had a muscular build, with a set of well-developed abdominal muscles and a slight slouch. In addition, he had a large scar on the left side of his jaw that extended down to his neck, which was given to him by his friend Bakugo during sparring, and a small red fox tattoo on the right side of his abdomen, above his waist on the left. His life has changed ever since. His abilities increased daily. Before he encountered a roadblock, he was en route to school. The Tatooine train station had a villain on top of it. With his hands on his hips and a smile on his face, the boy remarked, well, that looks like fun." 3 heroes were present: Kamui Woods, Waterduct, and Dead Arm. They were finding it quite challenging to defeat the villain. The boy smiled and said, "Well, I guess I could help. It might be enjoyable." He extended his hand and made a motion of grasping. Snatch! As the villain lost his footing and his arm twitched and bulged, he thought. Smirking, he said, "Gotcha." This was Izuku Midoriya, and he had a quirk known as Fox Sin that gave him something that many would consider a gift in addition to enabling him to take the physical characteristics of other people or objects. He is practically immortal due to his almost stopped aging factor and unfathomable levels of self-regeneration. He was given the very appropriate names Izuku the Fox Sin of Greed and Izuku the Undead as a result of this power. Izuku viewed this as a curse, even though most people would consider it an awesome quirk. Since he was a young child, he had been plagued by guilt because on the day he received it, someone died and he lived. As Kamui Woods proceeded to activate his final maneuver, the lacquered chain prison, the battle went on. The boy pumped a fist into the air and cheered, "Huh, yeah, get Kamui." When the pro approached, the villain yelled. He swung his arm and screamed, "Get away from me or I'll break you, toothpick." But before Kamui could complete his attack, a woman kicked him across the street, knocking him unconscious as a giant foot struck the villain's skull. This development appeared to deflate Izuku. The boy whimpered in disappointment, come on. I really wanted to see Kamui beat him." At last, the landed woman stood up. Her ass was visible, but her body was held together by her skin-tight suit. As they took pictures, 2 men said, "Money shot, money shot, money shot, money shot." Izuku was unable to control his facepalming. Figures. Izuku went to school and sat in his usual seat after the villain was removed. "All right, class, I think it's time we start settling on your future careers." The instructor spoke. He smiled and tossed them, saying, "I could pass these forms out, but why bother? I know you all want to head to the hero course." Everyone else began to cheer and use their peculiarities at that point. After which someone interrupted. With his feet on his desk, a blond boy with red eyes said, "Hey Teach, don't go clumping me with the rest of these rejects. I'm the real deal here." These emitters would be lucky enough to be sidekicks for some D-bucket lister. Hey. This boy was Izuku's best friend and rival, Katsuki Bakugo, a young prodigy in the class. In fact, he was the only one who permanently scarred the immortal boy, so the latter saw the scar as a special case. Every student in the class booed and gestured at the child, but they were unable to irritate him. The instructor perused the list. "Ah yes, Katsuki. You plan on going to UA, right?" The pupils mumbled to themselves and gasped. Izuku laughed. "Hell yeah, he is. He passed the mock tests and initiations. Kachan has what it takes to pass UA by a long shot." He continued. After saying, "As expected of my number one rival," he stood up and approached Bakugo's desk. He jabbed his thumb at himself and said, "However, I'm also going to enroll, so you better watch your back, or the fox sin of greed will rob you of your spot right from under you." Bakugo grinned and said, "Hey, that a challenge, Deku?" Izuku smiled and held out a fist, asking, "Feel like making it one?" The two gave each other a fist bump, and the blonde grinned. The boy with the green hair grinned. Speaking of, he positioned his arm in an arm wrestling position on the desk. "Care for a rematch before class starts?" Bakugo grinned. He slammed his arm down. "I say bring it," both hands grasped. "Ready," sang the boy. Having spent so much time with Bakugo and his crew, this tone was a result of habit. Bakugo exclaimed, "Go," as they began arm wrestling, their strength causing the desk to crack. The green-haired boy grinned and said, "If my memory serves me well, I beat you 361 of M 720 times." Bakugo grinned and used his peculiarity to inject some heat into the wrestling match, shooting heat beneath the cracking desk. "And today, I add another win to my belt," he exclaimed. After 5 minutes of this struggle, the teacher instructed them to sit down, which made Izuku lose concentration and Bakugo slam his arm down, almost shattering the desk. Izuku moaned, "Ah, not again. I always lose when I get distracted." Bakugo exclaimed, "Ha! That's another win," with laughter. As class began, the boys sighed, "Yeah, I hear ya." Izuku began packing up after class, putting away his hero notebook, an old notebook he had brought. His nickname came from his extreme greed for everything, especially knowledge. "With all I saw this morning, I'll probably know everything I need to make my own special moves killa." Izuku laughed. Bakugo entered behind him at that moment, peering over his shoulder. He inquired, "What are you writing?" Izuku continued writing after showing him his notes. He turned to a page on the blonde and said, "I find that watching people and taking cues from them helps broaden my combat scope. So to do this I take notes on everyone I can." He showed the boys some extremely detailed notes, including a detailed sketch of him using his quirk, and asked, "See?" Laughing, the blonde exploder said, "Planning ahead, huh? Hey, smart move." The fox Sin looked at his hand and clenched it into a fist, sighing, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's about time I actually become useful for once in my miserable life. And make this curse of mine actually help someone." As they left the room, Katsuki let out a frustrated sigh. "You're still hung up on that? That accident happened over 10 years ago. You've gotta let it go." Izuku shot back, "Easy for you to say. You weren't there when it happened." He went on, his eyes blazing with sorrow and regret. "Uraraka's dead, and it's all my fault. Why can't you understand that? She should have survived that accident, not me." Katsuki merely sighed. Since that day, this guilt had persisted for a long time, and his childhood friend was unable to let it go. It was not at all healthy. However, until they were both older, he had no idea why he took it so personally. He asked his best friend, "You really did love her, didn't you?" "More than I even realized at the time." The boy with the green hair put out a sorrowful sigh. Before Bakugo struck him in the back of the head, tears began to slowly well up in his eyes. He reprimanded the immortal teenager, saying, "Hey, don't cry, idiot. Heroes don't cry." Izuku gave him a look, then shook his head and wiped his eyes. Izuku said, "Right, sorry," to him. Katsuki made the decision that it was time for them to part ways as they left the school. The explosion maker turned to the west side of the sidewalk and said, "Well, I'm headed this way. See you tomorrow, Deku." The fox Sin joked, "See you tomorrow, ya mad bomber." He received a bark of laughter in return. Taking a shortcut home under a bridge, the teen with the green hair sighed. He wanted to do his typical, clearing his head, at the high buildings nearby before he left for home. Unbeknownst to him, however, green sludge appeared from a sewer port behind him as he was doing so, and he felt his depression slowly retake him. and when it abruptly approached him and engulfed him in its knackish grip, he was completely unaware of it. His voice was distorted as he said, "You'll make a nice meat suit for me to hide in, kid." Numbers. How many times have villains leapt me and then killed me again? As the sludge man abruptly began to enter Izuku's mouth, he thought. I lost count. But do I really give a damn anymore? Sigh well, perhaps we'll both be fortunate and he will kill me after all. Hopefully. He sighed as he began to suffocate and his vision began to deteriorate. The manhole cover was suddenly knocked off the entrance, and the sludge man stopped and turned toward it. He was a big man, easily 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders that made him half as wide as the enormous, incredibly toned and chiseled muscles that covered his body in shadows. This man's blonde hair, which had 2 extensions sticking up above his head, and his enormous smile, however, were his most striking features. Within a deep voice, the man said, "Don't worry, everything is fine." He went on, "Now that I'm here, that is." "No, not now," the sludge man cried in alarm as the big man lunged forward and threw back his fist. As Izuku slowly started to regain consciousness, the man yelled, "Texas SMAASH," and delivered a powerful punch that caused gale force winds to blow the sludge villain off. Right now, all he could think was, damn it. The boy was awakened by the mountain of a man gently slapping his cheek about 8 minutes later. Before Izuku slapped his hand away, he said, "Hey, wake up, kid. Come on, already." "Okay, I'm up, stop slapping me, already," he yelled angrily. However, as his vision cleared, he realized that the man in front of him was none other than All Might, the greatest hero of all time. The boy almost instantly went into fanboy mode after hearing this. The boy exclaimed, "Whoa, what the, All Might? What are you doing here?" "I was chasing this sludge villain, and I'm normally more aware and try to prevent innocents from being caught in the crossfire. Who knew that navigating the city's sewer systems could be so difficult?" He sighed. "Literally everyone due to the fact that everything looks the same down there." Izuku was deadpanned. He sighed under his breath, "Well, there goes my chance to drown my emotional pain in physical pain." All Might put a hand to his ear and said, "Sorry, didn't quite catch that." With a dismissive tone, the immortal said, "Don't worry about it." After saying that, he stood up and gathered his belongings. He said to the man, "Anyway, thanks All Might." The hero grinned and said, "All in a day's work for a hero." Before he knelt down and jumped high into the air, he said to Izuku, "Well, until we meet again, young man." So long, until he saw that Izuku was dangling on his leg. Just before the mountain of muscle began to try to pry him away, the boy said, "Don't mind me, just hitching a ride." As he attempted to remove him from his leg, he exclaimed, "Let go already, I love my fans, but this is too much." Izuku shrugged before releasing All Might's leg, letting the blonde know that he would undoubtedly die if he fell from this height. "You were jumping towards a building in the direction I was headed. I just thought I'd save myself some time and energy. But, if you preferred I let go now, I guess that's fine." "Wait!" he yelled as he swiftly seized him, but Izuku used up some of his strength and smacked his hand away with unexpected force. With an accepting expression on his face, the fox Sin clenched his hand and glanced at All Might before letting himself fall. Thud. Crack. With a sickening crack, the boy fell back first onto the street below, his body mangled by the impact. In an attempt to save Izuku's life, All Might swiftly altered their course and landed where he had crashed, only to be greatly surprised. A frustrated, "Damn it, not even falling from that altitude will do me in," he swore. All of this could only confuse the top hero. Almost tearing out his hair in frustration, he screamed, "Damn my stupid immortality, I hate this." All Might said, "Young man, what is your quirk?" as the green boy stood up and brushed himself clean. "It's called Fox Sin. I got ridiculous healing abilities and my aging has slowed to roughly the same speed as the slowest snail on record. In short, I'm basically immortal." He clarified. "Oh, and I can take physical properties from anyone I choose and make use of it, and steal objects," he continued. "That's a very unorthodox quirk," and amazed All Might nodded. Izuku said, "You say unconventional, I say a curse." Before turning to face All Might, he continued, "When I got it, someone died. And on top of that, it allows me to steal things. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone would think that I was a villain. I got great power without earning it, be honest with me All Might. Do you think a failure like me, someone who wasn't able to save a person who wasn't meant to die, could honestly be a hero?" He asked him with a frantic expression on his eyes. When the top-ranked hero looked into his eyes, he saw the desperation there. He detested that expression on people's faces. Izuku's eyes widened at what was happening in front of his green eyes, but before he could answer the boy's question, he began to cough and steam began to surround him. "No way," the boy exclaimed, watching the man transform in front of him. When the steam subsided, the buff hero was replaced by a very scrawny man with sunken ghostly eyes and nearly lifeless hair. To be honest, he appeared to be a walking skeleton. The man moaned, "Aw crap," as he exclaimed, "All Might, what the hell happened to you?" Izuku shocked. He received his response when the man sat down and then lifted his shirt to show an ugly, ancient wound. "This is what happened. I got this in a fight 5 years back," he clarified. The immortal boy said, bewildered, "Holy, wait, you mean to me Toxic Chainsaw did that to you? That's not how I remember seeing it." He lowered his shirt and said, "Wow, you certainly know your stuff, but no, this isn't from that fight. My lungs were basically rendered catatonic and my stomach is basically gone, and unfortunately it's unlikely it would be able to be fixed," he continued. Izuku sighed and shrugged, wishing he could assist him. "If I could help, I would. I'm not sure if my healing factor can be shared with someone else." As he approached the man, he said, "Hang, now that I think about it," and then bit down on his thumb, pulling it out. While his blood trickled onto the wound, he said, "Let's test it." Just as the feeble hero was about to object, he started to feel a little uneasy, but in a positive way. He could clearly feel his stomach slowly growing back after a few seconds had gone by and his stomach wound had gradually begun to fade into a pale scar. But it appeared that only those 2 areas could be healed by the little blood that was administered to him, which, regrettably, left his respiratory system in its current state. After it was over, he reported, "Okay, my stomach managed to grow back, but my lungs are still unchanged." Izuku sat next to All Might and remarked, "Well, at least this is good for something." He questioned, "So what fight caused that anyway?" "That's something that needs to stay under wraps. If word got out that the symbol of peace got critically wounded, people would lose their spirit and villains would take advantage of that to cause chaos," replied All Might. The boy shrugged, then his face darkened once more. "Fair enough." The symbol of peace said, "Now about your question. Mind repeating it again? Can someone like me, who should have died but didn't, become a hero with a curse like mine?" The immortal asked. "Even if I failed to do the one thing a hero is supposed to do, save someone?" All Might gave him a contemplative look. He had witnessed similar cases in the past. In addition to having survivor's guilt, this boy was also clearly bothered by something else, but he chose not to inquire in case it was too private. "To be honest with you, I think you'd make a fine hero with a quirk like yours. But I think the one thing that's holding you back is your mindset," the brunette clarified. "Experience has taught me that heroes with a mindset like that are destined to fail," he continued. "So what I think you need to do is try thinking of your immortality not as a curse, but rather a second chance to make sure that you will never fail an innocent person again." Izuku cast a thoughtful glance down. Was it really the wrong approach to view it as a curse? Had he been hanged without cause that day? All of a sudden, everything made sense. He had a second chance to ensure that the same thing didn't happen again, but he had been wasting it. Even so, he would need some time to gather himself. He was still haunted by the image of his female friend, who was presumably dying in front of him. "All Might, have you ever lost someone you cared about?" the child responded. The man gave him a look before letting out a sorrowful sigh. "Yeah, my master. She was murdered by a villain who is, for all intents and purposes, my equal. I tried to save her, he said but didn't finish. Yeah, I lost a childhood friend in the accident that gave me my quirk." Izuku gave a nod. "Guess we both have that in common." "That we do." The blonde nodded, and the two fell silent for a moment, until there was a distant explosion. "What the?" shouted the immortal, startled. The symbol of peace began. "What in the world is?" before realizing that the bottles that contained the sludge villain had disappeared from his pockets. He exclaimed, "Oh crap," with alarm. Izuku moaned, then clutched his head in realization. "Don't tell me, oh my god, it's my fault you dropped those bottles." All Might told him, "No, I should have been more careful, don't blame yourself. In any case we've got to move and see what we can do to help. Are you willing to try and right this wrong, young man?" he inquired. In response, the immortal teen growled, "You bet your ass I am." After that, the two continued to run until they arrived at the explosion site and saw the same sludge villain harassing the numerous on-duty heroes. Additionally, Izuku almost instantly recognized the hostage. "Crap, he's got Kachan." He swore angrily as he saw his best friend being held captive by the sludge villain. "Friend of yours?" inquired All Might. He clenched his fists and growled, "He's my best friend. And now this bastard's got him. This makes me so angry." As he pushed through the crowd and began running towards the villain, he yelled, "Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not gonna stand around and let another friend die because of my mistakes." He used his powers to steal its perception, making himself invisible to it, and then he pulled out his weapon, a silver 3-section staff, from inside his bag. He shouted, "Phantom Hunt," as he vanished from view of the green blob. Then, with purple energy all around him, he began spinning his staff. "Fox Hunt," he cried out, swung the weapon in various directions. The staff user noticed that it was protecting its eyes the most, but the majority of the hits had no effect. He shouted, "All right, ugly, take this," and threw his bag at its eye, causing it to release Bakugo. The blonde exclaimed, "Gah! What the, Deku? What are you doing here?" The green-haired boy shot back, "Shut up and let me get you out of this asshat's body." Regaining his strength, he stretched it around Bakugo with his staff before beginning to pull, but he was unable to move it very far. All Might wished he could assist Izuku as he watched him fight valiantly to save his friend, but then he recalled the boy's statement that he didn't want to watch a friend perish once more. The hero was so moved by those words that he could hardly muster the strength to bulk up once more. He was about to be struck by his attacker after being knocked to the ground with Izuku, so he prepared for the blow. He looked up to see All Might standing there when he felt a gust of wind and no impact. The symbol of peace said to him, "Young man, thank you for buying me the time I needed, and thank you for inspiring me to go beyond my current limits. Now, let me repay the favor," he exclaimed, snatching both boys in one hand before lifting his free hand. He screamed, "Detroit Smash," as he struck the villain, sending it flying off Bakugo and creating a wind funnel. For a brief moment, everyone simply stood there in silence before. As the rain started to fall, someone said, "Hey, it's raining." Another exclaimed, "Whoa, All Might change the weather," with amazement. A third exclaimed, "He really is amazing." A fourth cheered, "All Might saved the day again." And the rest of the group began to cheer as well. All Might glanced at the audience, then at Bakugo, who had been momentarily unconscious, and Izuku. Everyone told Bakugo that his quirk was fantastic and that he would make a good pro after he was checked out. Izuku, however, received a range of responses. The boy was told by Dead Arms, "You sure have a weird quirk, kid. Had you become a villain instead of a hero, I doubt many could stop you, honestly." Backdraft grinned. Kamui Woods firmly reminded him, "Be sure to use your gifts for good like you did today, you hear? Because I think they'd do well." As Izuku nodded, he said, "No argument here." As the sun began to set, Izuku headed home after finishing all of that. Then Bakugo approached from behind. He called to his friend, "Hey, Deku," and he turned to face him. The Fox Sin looked over his shoulder and said, "Huh? Oh hey Kachan. I just felt the need to let you know that, well, if I'm being honest, you didn't really do shit." The ash blonde sighed. The green-haired boy shrugged and turned to face the blonde, glaring at him. "Yeah, I gotta admit I wasn't much help. But I wasn't just going to stand by. I mean, I got these powers, so I might as well do something good with them. And besides," his expression softened. He said to the explosion boy, "I lost to Uraraka, so I was not gonna let myself lose you too." After a moment, Bakugo said, "Thanks for throwing yourself into the fire to save me." As he extended his fist to his friend, Izuku grinned. "Hey, what are friends for?" It was a warm and sincere smile, which is uncommon among the usually melancholy immortal. Before they parted ways, Bakugo nodded and accepted the fist bump. Yeah. However, All Might unexpectedly materialized in front of Izuku in his muscular form when he was halfway home. "I am here," he exclaimed, striking a pose at the boy. As he leapt back, the immortal squawked, "What the? Where'd you come from?" He questioned the top hero, "Better question, what are you doing here?" Before abruptly transforming into his actual form, All Might shrugged and said, "Getting away from the press. URG, he turned to the boy and moaned. "Young man, I wanted to talk to you about what occurred earlier today," he replied. As Izuku put it, "What about it? I told you that you could become a hero with your powers, but not with your mindset. But today, I saw that it was your grief that spurred you into action, causing you to move without thinking. Just like a real hero." The man proceeded to bow his head. "I apologize, I should not have been so narrow-minded." The boy asked hopefully, "Wait, are you saying I can become a hero, even with my mental baggage?" The weaker hero nodded in agreement, saying, "If you can learn to use that as motivation to become stronger, then yeah, you can." Izuku grinned shakily and clutched his chest as a result. Yes, he thought contentedly. Ochako, did you hear that? I'll become a hero for you, I can and will. With a sigh, All Might extended his arms. The immortal boy snapped out of his reverie as he said, I deem you worthy of my power, my quirk is yours to inherit. With a raised eyebrow, Izuku questioned, What? What do you mean by that? So it starts. Izuku gazed at All Might for a full minute before raising an eyebrow and tilting his head to the left in bewilderment. The teenager, believing he was hearing things, said, Inherit? What the hell are you talking about, All Might? You going senile or something? The man said somewhat indignantly, No, I'm not going senile. The immortal in front of him gave him a questioning look as he clarified, I know that the identity of my quirk is a very hot topic on the internet, and that they assume it's raw strength or some such nonsense. But that's actually not the case. The boy folded his arms across his chest and asked, What is the case, then? With his arms extended, All Might explained, I was not born with this power, it is a sacred torch that was bestowed upon me by someone else. Whoa whoa whoa. Hold it, Izuku yelled, gesturing with his hands to try to slow him down. He began, This has got to be a joke, right? I mean it goes against everything we know about quirks. I mean seriously. And then, as ideas and theories raced through his mind, he began to ramble on. He developed this habit as a result of his brainiac tendencies. With a drop of perspiration, the scrawny man thought, well, he's beginning to overthink it. He yelled, Quit nerdin' out, to get the immortal to stop thinking. As his outstretched hand glowed with light, the hero explained, It's true. I can give you my abilities. This power of mine, its true name is One for All. It's a quirk that stockpiles power as it's passed along, enhancing the quirks of those who wield it in the process, if they already have one. Izuku said in a deadpan voice, One for All? What is that supposed to be, a Three Musketeers reference or something? All Might let out a frustrated sigh. He thought, man, this kid is a tough nut to crack. Young man, the reason why I'm telling you this is because I have been on a long hunt for a successor to give One for All to. I had planned to go to UA for a candidate, that is, until I ran into you today. Still doubtful, the boy asked, Really? Yes. When all those heroes stayed idly by, you ran towards the danger to save that kid, even though you were sure that at your current level you wouldn't be able to do it. The brunette nodded. That is what makes a hero, jumping in against all odds to save a life, which is what you showed. The immortal boy raised an eyebrow and then laughed, asking, So after seeing that, you want me to be your successor? Okay, then, he gave a nod. The peace icon grinned and said, No reluctance, good to hear. Well then, tomorrow, meet me at the Dagaba beach early in the morning. It's there that we'll begin your training. Before heading home, the boy nodded and said, You got it. After arriving home, the boy collapsed to the ground, letting out a trembling breath and allowing his feelings to finally settle before he began to sob quietly out of relief, happiness, and a tiny bit of residual sadness. At that moment, his mother emerged from the kitchen and noticed her son in his current location. When Inko Midoriya took her son to have his quirk evaluated and registered for the first time, she was essentially the same person. She was slender and had a lovely set of feminine curves that would make her a man's paradise. A C-cup bust with all the extra features and a soft peach-shaped ass. However, her expression instantly changed to one of concern when she saw her son laughing and crying simultaneously. She said, Izuku, are you okay, honey? He responded, still laughing and crying, Why yeah. I just got offered to training from All Might himself. And I can't help but remember that she'd be right there, hugging me in delight, if she were still alive. After all these years, Inko knew exactly who he was referring to, and she sighed with sadness at how true his words were and that her son hadn't moved on. She shed a tear and thought, if only she were still here, then his pain would vanish. She always detested it when her son would experience a depressive episode, and she detested it even more when he tried suicide and his peculiarity prevented all of those attempts from ever happening. The woman took him into her arms and knelt beside him. Her son was still crying when she felt him lean into her arms. She said calmingly, I miss her too, sweetie. Not a day goes by where I don't. But if you were offered training from All Might, then I think you should take it so you can honor her memory, she said softly. I will, Mom. That's something I plan on doing, count on it, he smiled. The following day, Izuku used all of his strength to move a refrigerator that All Might was sitting on top of at Dagaba Beach the next morning. He managed to move it about 5 feet, but he quickly fell to the ground a few seconds later. In his buff form, All Might called out, Hey, It's pretty comfy up here on this fridge. How are things down there? Ya know, people move these every day, and most of them don't have any super strength, he continued. From his position on the ground, the immortal shot back, yeah, but I've got, what, 600 pounds sitting on top of mine? Nah, I've lost weight, so even with my stomach back I'm down to just 560 these days, in this form at least. The guy responded. He gave it a thumbs up and added, thanks again for that, by the way. The boy grinned and nodded, no problem. So, do you mind explaining to me why I'm dragging trash around at the buttcrack o' dawn? I thought you said I'd be inheriting your power? He asked. Before he remembered anything else, the mountain of muscle explained, but it's not that simple. The force of one for all is equal to a typhoon due to the combined strength of its past users. Using it as you are now would blow your limbs off your body. Though I am sure your own quirk would negate that, I'm pretty sure you don't exactly enjoy regrowing lost limbs. Better safe than sorry, he responded with a smirk. The boy yelled, whoa, you mean this could kill me? And then shook his head, but, yeah, I mean I've always trained my body to get tougher every time it regenerates, but depending on how I got the wound usually determines how long it takes. So I can see your point. He continued to tap the scar. I mean my friend Kachan, the guy who got caught by the sludge villain, gave me this. A wound that took over a month to heal. So I can definitely get lasting damage if I'm not careful. All Might nodded and then clapped his hands, saying, I see. Definitely something to be careful of. He pointed to the enormous pile of trash and yelled, now get back to it. The entry exams are 10 months away, and we have a lot to do, instead. As the training and beach cleanup got underway, the boy nodded and said, right, I think it's about time this beach got a much-needed cleaning. As a result, Izuku continued to work with all might and stick to his aim to pass American Dream plan, gradually cleaning up the beach and enhancing his already remarkable physique. But one day, when he had a few days off, when the green-haired boy was strolling through the town, he noticed a little girl, maybe 7 years old, attempting to cross a walkway with some heavy books, but she stumbled and began to fall backwards. Izuku instinctively ran forward to grab the girl, but to her dismay, her books still dropped to the ground. He said, you okay, kid? To her. She nodded and began attempting to retrieve the books once more. Yes, thank you. Izuku made the decision to assist her, but they both stopped when a young boy, who appeared to be around 8 or 9, approached them. He didn't appear pleased and appeared to take offense when Midoriya placed a friendly head pat on the girl's head. He screamed, hey, get your hands off my sister. Not understanding why the boy was so upset about what he was witnessing, the immortal said, calm down, kid. All I did was help keep your sister from hurting herself and even helped pick her books up. Unfortunately, his words seemed to go in one ear and out the other, as is the case with most children of this age. The boy shouted, you get away from her right now. He chose to use his quirk. He had white wild hair, feral eyes, and equally sharp teeth, which was reportedly the capacity to send tiny black balls with shark-toothed mouths on them, after which they chewed off a number of Izuku chunks. The immortal sighed boredly, unfazed by the fact that chunks of his body were being eaten. TCH, you got a lame sense of gratitude, kid. The little girl moved between them as they gradually grew back. Big bro, stop. He was only trying to help me, not hurt me, he replied. All Might was in his full form around the next corner, observing the situation to see how his soon-to-be successor would handle it. The boy looked at Izuku, who was already recovering, and said, wait, what? He questioned, is that really what was going on? The boy with the green hair raised an eyebrow and said, yes it was. Any reason you're so overprotective of her, if I may ask? The boy bowed his head after explaining, we're kids and easy targets for villains. I'm just trying to be a good brother. I'm sorry sir, please, is there any way I can make it up to you for this sin I've committed? He inquired. The boy said something that made Izuku laugh. Kid, let me tell you something about sins. They're permanent, and they can never be removed. It doesn't matter what you do, it stays on you forever. All you're doing is trying to keep your sister safe. That's not a sin. He clarified, and the child looked down in awe. True, genuine sins. No amount of repenting can ever atone for them. He continued. So be sure to pray that you go your entire life without committing one. The knowledge that his student had just imparted to the children astounded All Might. He was extremely proud of his young student, which made him feel proud, but stab a silver spearhead pierced the boy's chest just as he was about to finish speaking to the children. A boy with medium-length shaggy brown hair and 2 bangs framing his face, brown eyes, fair skin, and pink cheeks rested on the spear. He was dressed in quarter-length dark green pants, short boots with big buttons that matched the hood, and a long orange and green sweatshirt with dark green sleeves and a hood. On his leg, he appeared to have a bear tattoo as well. The spear itself appeared to be made of an unidentified metal and was silver and blue, with a pointed square with a hollowed-out center that held the head. As Izuku spat up blood, the new boy grinned and said, "Glad you finally realized that. Hey Izuku, it's been a while. How goes? What's wrong? It's not like you to be so quiet." Izuku, who did not recognize him, said, and who the hell are you supposed to be?" In an attempt to sound hurt, the boy said, "Who am I?" "Well, that hurts my feelings. You mean you don't recognize me?" The immortal, still very much alive with the spear in his chest, said, "I don't remember you at all. Sorry there, bud." What was happening? All Might stiffened up behind the corner he was hiding in. The boy's spear began spinning rapidly as it pierced his torso. HMPH. I guess it doesn't matter. The important thing is, you are Izuku Midoriya, the fox sin of greed. Or should I say, he said. As his spear flew back to him, he questioned mockingly, "Izuku the undead?" As his wound healed itself, the immortal simply turned to him. After wiping the blood from his mouth, the sin of greed turned to face the children behind him and remarked, "You're really starting to bug me, kid, and I'm getting sick of your tone. Both of you might want to leave. Things are about to get heated here," he stated to them. As he and his sister ran, the boy nodded and said, "Right, thanks." Izuku then stood on his spear, levitating, and glared back at the child above him. He was 4 inches shorter than him and appeared to be about 5'6". The boy told him, "I know your sin. Come on, even if you can't remember me, you can still remember your own sin, can't you? You know that terrible, awful crime you committed all those years ago?" All Might became perplexed. What on earth was this boy discussing? When he spoke again, he received his response. To satisfy your selfish desire and greed for a powerful quirk, you waited until an innocent girl was about to cross the street and pushed her, causing an accident that gave you your quirk of eternal life and took hers away. The brunette screamed. Izuku's face darkened instantly. The boy added, "I'm right, aren't I?" as Bakugo began to slowly make his way toward the scene from the side. "All right, what the hell is going on here?" he inquired. Izuku said to the blonde behind him, "Hey Kachan, ya mind not butting in, I'm kinda in the middle of something here." The explosion user told him, "What are you doing fighting out in the open? Ua won't let you in if you get caught like this." The fox Sin pointed at his attacker and said, "What's my deal? Some little punk just attacked me and started a fight." Bakugo saw him after following his finger. He squinted and said, "What the? King, is that you?" After a few seconds, Izuku's eyes grew wide. He screamed at Bakugo, "Tell me how that little creep is supposed to be king." With a confused expression, the boy who loved explosions said, "What? Can you not tell? He just lost some weight." The immortal yelled, "Lost some weight? That's not even the main issue here," loudly. What on earth is happening here? The peace symbol was completely bewildered. He made the decision to come out of hiding at that point. He walked over to the 3 boys as King slowly floated to the ground and called, "Yo, young Midoriya, over here." The boy said casually, "Oh, hey sensei." Then he said, "How much did you hear?" Before turning to face the others, the man remarked, "A fair amount." He inquired, "So, who's your friend?" The blonde clarified, "That's Taida Uraraka, or as we used to call him back in the day, King. We call him that because when we all used to play King of the Hill as kids, he always won." The immortal continued. "Which was because his chubby ass always cheated." He snapped, pinching Taida's ear, recalling a much plumper King who was younger. He yelled, "Ow, hey, knock it off, damn it," while attempting to escape the irate green-haired boy's hold. Izuku angrily exclaimed, "Serves you right for trying to kill me, ya jerk." All Might chose to inquire, the story of which being what, exactly? King's quirk turned his spear into a large light green pillow with dark green triangles on it, and he snapped his fingers, saying, "He's responsible for the death of my sister," which enabled him to lay down with his arms folded on it after it floated behind him. Bakugo got back at him with a snap, "And you're an idiot. You weren't even there when it happened, so you don't know everything," he continued. The boy sneered and turned to face Izuku, saying, "Whatever." He yelled, "We'll finish this later, Izuku." The green-haired boy shot back, "Good. I need to pound a few key facts that you missed into that thick skull of yours." As he floated away on his pillow, Taida merely gave him a glare. Izuku muttered a complaint before turning back to Bakugo. As directed by the man, The boy used the hero's given name to explain. Anyway, Kachan, this is my sensei, Mr. Toshinori Yagi. All Might grinned and said, "It's nice to meet you in person, young man." He poked a thumb at his friend, ignoring the irate, "Oi," and asked jokingly, "Same here. So you're the one training Mr. Depressed and Suicidal over here?" He received a reply. Toshinori simply laughed back. He nodded and then scowled to say, "Yeah, I am. This is one of his days off." He received a sigh in response to his question. That Taita kid, does he even know about young Midoriya's survivor's guilt? The blonde boy rubbed his temples and sighed, judging by the way he acted just now. No, he doesn't. He whispered, "That's probably going to cause a few problems." They laughed when the green-haired boy said dismissively, "I'll let him. Next time I see him, I'll make sure he knows." After 6 months, Izuku was chasing All Might, who was riding a Segway 6 months after the first incident while toting an old medium-sized safe over his shoulder. But as he did, he gradually felt his strength wane and his vision grew hazy, and then he passed out and unintentionally dropped the safe on his head, spilling blood all over the place. His teacher stopped to look back at him, and he moaned, "Ow," with more annoyance than pain. Hey, look alive now, kid. You've got 3 months to go here, you can't just stop now." The man replied. Just before noticing that Izuku was trembling and could hardly move, he said, "You want to send it all down the toilet and take it easy?" He said, "You're overworked. If that's the case, then you haven't been sticking to the aim to pass American Dream Plan. You're overdoing things, that'll have the opposite effect of what we want." He forced himself up and said, except, in a strained tone, "I want to do well, not just get into UA. If I don't do well, I can't do that, damn it," he snarled, raising his head. "If I'm gonna make the most of this miserable life of mine, I'm gonna do it my way and push past my limits, and become a better hero than even you could be." All Might let out a gasp. He went buff and grabbed him by the collar after thinking, he's really put thought into this. He grinned and said, "That's what I like about you, fanboy." He smiled strangely and said, "Hey, I tend to have that effect on people. It serves you well. I do get your concerns, but now is not the time to rush progress. But fear not, I can get you back on track. Leave it to this old man to adjust your plan," he was told by All Might. The day of the exams, 3 months later, on his way to the beach to see how his student was doing, Toshinori was taken aback by what he saw. Izuku stood on top of a huge heap of trash, his normal shirt was gone, his nose was running from the cold, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs as his long canines gleamed in the sunlight and his breath became apparent in the chilly wind. Then he subtly went buff. "Holy whoa kid, you seriously did it, seriously, there's not a speck of trash on this beach, holy freaking," he began. "Super crap," he said, astonished. Before the man could catch him, Izuku began to wobble slowly and fell off the trash hill. He asked wearily, "Hey, so how'd I do?" All Might nodded and said, "Even better than I had hoped. You're now more than ready to receive one for all." All Might was able to get another good look at his protege as he put him down. With a newly formed 8-pack adorning his abdomen and even more taut and chiseled pectoral muscles, the boy's body was even more toned and chiseled than before. By this time, he had changed almost entirely. Izuku grinned broadly, tears streaming down his cheeks. He looked at his fist and whispered, "Mom, Ochako, I did it. All Might, do you feel like I deserve this? I just can't help but feel that this is all just luck. Hey. I was once told that being lucky and being deserving are two different things. One is the result of an accident while the other is a result of hard work. Never get those mixed up," he said as he removed a section of his locks. The boy moaned and scowled, "What's with the, oh no, don't tell me?" The man said to him, "Eat this." "Oh god no," moaned Izuku. "That's right. In order to be granted one for all, you have to ingest some of my DNA. Hair is usually the least disgusting method," he clarified. He yelled, "Now eat," as he forced his pupil's mouth open. Izuku gasped as the hair was pushed down his throat, saying, "Wait a sec. No, He glared at his mentor after swallowing it. "Not cool. It'll take 3 hours for the hair to process, so in the meantime I need you to remember. Your body was molded in a hurry, so you have to be careful how you use it. For now I suggest utilizing the enhancements it gives your existing powers before doing anything else." The brunette advised him. "But when you do, you need to channel one for all throughout your body, clench your butt cheeks, and yell this from the depths of your heart," he added while punching. "SMASH. Hey. Right." Izuku chuckled. "Anyway, I better get moving. Can't afford to be late for the exams now, can I?" he added as he grabbed his things and began to walk in the direction of Ua. Later, Izuku was happy and content with himself as he made his way to the Ua gates. Though as he walked he soon found himself joined by Bakugo. "Hey Kachan, how are ya?" he said in his melodic voice. His smile was savage. "Ready to blow the competition right out of the water, you?" he asked. Izuku grinned eagerly and said, "I'm going to make him second guess facing me." Before Izuku stumbled and nearly fell due to his typical pointed boots, the blonde said, "Good, see you, then." His red eyes widened at the person who had just prevented him from falling. "No way." A female voice that sounded very familiar said, "I apologize for using my quirk on you without your consent. Since falling isn't exactly painless, I think this can be forgiven." Izuku's eyes widened in utter shock and disbelief at who he saw standing in front of him as he was brought back to his feet after floating for a short while. She shared Tata's height, fair skin, round face, pink cheeks, and eyes, as well as brown hair styled in a bob cut with two bangs framing her face. However, she was distinctly feminine, with a heart-shaped ass and a set of perky C-cup breasts. Last but not least, each of her fingers had tiny pads. The fox Sin was able to gasp, "Oh Ochako." She tilted her head and asked, "Do I know you? I feel like I should." Without realizing it, she caused Izuku's heart to crack a little, but not significantly. He opened his mouth to speak, but Bakugo cut him off. He said to his friend, "How about we try and figure that out after the exam?" As they left the girl in a very confused state, he called back to her, "Come on Deku, let's go. Good seeing you again Uraraka. Glad to see that the car crash didn't kill you, instead." All she could say was, what?" before shaking her head and heading inside. Later, she could take care of that. Inside the auditorium, everyone was sitting in their assigned seats when a man with long blonde hair styled way up came on the stage. He wore sunglasses, had a mustache, and a black suit with a speaker device around his neck. This was the voice hero, Present Mike. Okay. Welcome all you fine kids to the UA entrance exams and thank you for coming. Now come on and let me hear ya," he addressed the children. Silence. In an attempt to avoid coming across as irritated by the lack of response, he said, "Okay, keeping it mellow. That's fine. Present Mike, hey, I still listen to his radio show every day of the week." The immortal boy smirked before nudging his friend. "What about you, Kachan?" The boy grinned and said, "Hey, it's actually hard to not listen to his radio show. So today you'll be doing 10-minute mock urban battles against foe villains after a written exam. In these battles there are 3 different types of villains to destroy, each having a different value of points depending on their difficulty. Your objective is to gather points by shredding those villains like a mid-song guitar solo. Racking up the most points will guarantee you a spot for sure." Mike clarified as the screen in front of him displayed the topic he was discussing. "Excuse me, sir." Another male applicant spoke up, drawing attention to him. The boy in question was tall with well-kempt hair and had sharp features and glasses on. On the form it lists 4 villain types. If this is a mistake on official UA material, it is shameful. "We are exemplary students, so we expect the best from the country's top school," he continued before turning to Izuku. "As for you, the boy with the ghastly scar on his face. You've been talking this entire time, it's distracting the rest of us. Stop it. If you can't take this seriously then leave." Izuku immediately sent a glare at him. "How about you do everyone a favor by minding your own business instead," he replied. This caused the boy to look at him in surprise due to his tone, but they were soon interrupted by President Mike. "Okay, examinee 70,111. Thank you for calling in with your request," the man said. "The 4th villain is worth 0 points. They're basically just an obstacle you have to avoid. It's not that they can't be beaten, but there's kinda no point. I recommend my listeners try to avoid it and just focus on the ones top of the charts," he clarified. "Just something to avoid then. Alright, but I still might smash it anyway," Izuku thought. "Thank you." The boy from earlier nodded as he sat down. Mike went on, "A little taste of our school motto before we leave. That's a great soundbite. Are you prepared to go further? Let's hear a plus ultra. A true hero is one who combats life's misfortunes, as Napoleon Bonaparte once stated." Silence. "Wow, you guys are a tough crowd," he mused. With that everyone took the written exam and then went to the mock battle cities. Izuku, wearing his favorite track suit, stood there licking his lips. Which was an orange jacket with a green plaid ribbed collar and similarly colored cuffs, and bottom band. He had no shirt on which left his front in full display, and also had on green pants, golden greaves, and gold arm bracers. The boy sighed happily as he breathed in some fresh air. He wasn't sure as to why, but suddenly he felt so much happier, as if part of the weight he had suffered under had been partially lifted. Though his heart nearly stopped and skipped a few beats when he saw Uraraka standing not far from him. I need to go talk to her. I have to know if she blames me for what happened, and try to atone for it, if to just ask for her forgiveness, he thought as he started to walk towards her. However, the same boy that called him out back in the auditorium grabbed his shoulder, much to his irritation. She's trying to focus on this exam. Are you trying to distract her, too? He questioned, and got a glare for his troubles. If you want to keep that hand of yours, I suggest you get it off me, now. The fox Sin snapped in irritation. Everyone's eyes widened as the boy instinctively retreated. Damn, that guy doesn't take shit from anyone, one said. Another said, yeah, better stay on his good side. Too damn true. A third agreed. The immortal became irritated upon hearing all of this. Oi! If any of you have something to say to me, then say it to my face. Damn it, he exploded. And another thing, you all better watch yourselves, because I'm feeling really greedy right now, and might just take all the points for myself. He continued. And you want to know why? Because I'm Izuku Midoriya, the fox Sin of greed. Everyone's eyes became determined as a result of this. If they could, they wouldn't allow Izuku to win every point. Though in the back Uraraka heard what he said and nearly gasped in shock when she recognized the boy's name. Izuku? She thought with wide eyes. Alright people, get moving. There's no countdown in real life, so why should there be one here? Present Mike asked loudly, prompting everyone to dash into the mock battle zone to destroy as many robots as possible. Izuku started running down the streets as he whipped out his 3-section staff, right as a 1-point villain came across his path. Target acquired. Engage target, it said before it changed direction and charged. Izuku smirked and charged at the robot, ready to smash it to scrap metal, only for a laser to trash it instead, much to his annoyance. What the? He gasped before he turned around and saw a blonde kid in a fancy get-up with a large belt in the spot where the laser was. Hey pal, do ya mind? That villain was mine, he snapped. Sorry, you were taking too long and I assumed you didn't want it. Oh well. I'm off to find more villains, adieu, he shrugged before walking off. What a weirdo. The immortal said while shaking his head before racing off to find more robots. Soon he found himself surrounded by 3-pointers right across the bespectacled kid from earlier. Snatch, he said as he stole the kid's speed and the power from the robots. He then used Fox Hunt to slice them up and then used the extension capability of his staff to steal one of their heads and send it crashing into a cluster of 2-pointers and causing them to explode. Hey, 34 points, easy pickings. The fox Sin smirked as the bespectacled boy regained his speed and proceeded to look at Izuku in shock. He exclaimed, did he just steal my speed? What kind of villainous quirk is that? However, he was then left stupefied when a 1-point villain managed to stab Izuku through the chest, and he was still alive, albeit coughing up blood. His annoyance was evident as he smashed the robot's arm and then the rest of the machine after saying, well, isn't that just annoying? This caused everyone around him to look at him in shock, including Uraraka, who was beating 3 2-pointers and a 3-pointer. This shock even extended to the observation booth. Did I just see that right? A hero with a cowboy accent asked as he stared at the screen and the very much still alive Izuku. I think so. What kind of quirk does he have? An alluring female hero's voice asked in shock. According to his file, a quirk that grants him power-sapping abilities as well as quote, immortality, a kindly voice replied. Back with the students, Izuku managed to rack up around 50 points so far, but just as he was about to take out another 3-pointer, the ground started to rumble. What in the world is that? Someone asked as the ground continued to rumble when a giant robot came out of the ground. The green-haired immortal took one look at it and knew it was the 0-pointer. The 0-pointer? Seriously? Did they have to make it so big? Izuku said to himself as he prepared himself to run, but stopped dead in his tracks when he heard someone call for help, someone very familiar. Help! Someone please help me, I'm stuck! Uraraka cried in pain as she tried to get free from some rubble. Ow, my leg. I think it's broken, I can't move. She cried out as the robot's tank-like treads approached her, prepared to crush her. Izuku's mind flashed back to the accident where he, once, thought he had lost her, and his face contorted into an enraged and desperate snarl. He would not lose her again. He yelled, like hell I'm losing her again, and then he rushed forward without thinking, removing his jacket and preparing to jump as One for All unconsciously came on. and in a matter of seconds, he leapt straight up into the air, right at the robot's face and past its fist. All Might remarked, "That's right, young Midoriya, do it. Show what it truly means to be a hero," while observing his student alongside the other judges. Show them the meaning of self-sacrifice. He glared at the robot and felt One for All empower his right arm, bringing it back for a punch. He roared, "Survive this," and threw his fist in its face, causing the entire robot to explode in a single blow, akin to Asura's wrath. Izuku grinned as he gradually became aware of the pain. "Oh yeah, just the pain rush I needed." He grinned as he soon started falling to the ground. As he prepared for impact, he thought, "On my latest suicide attempt." However, before he could hit the pavement. Smack. Halfway down, he felt someone slap him on the cheek, and then he was floating. He blinked, then glanced to his left, where Uraraka's quirk had stopped him, albeit with a rather strained appearance. And, release. She gasped as they both dropped, and she then proceeded to hurl as Izuku's body started to rapidly heal, even faster than usual. "Huh, so that's what he meant by new enhancements," the boy said as he got up and watched his arm turn a normal color and twist back into its original position before he started walking towards Uraraka again. He said, "Hey, you okay?" to her. The girl was about to answer, but her currently broken leg and case of nausea made her faint and fall off the robot part she was on and into Izuku's arms. As he held her, the boy couldn't help but feel a wave of righteousness. "It's okay, I got you," he whispered to her as he held her close, "and I promise, this time, I'm never going to let you go," he added as time ran out. "And time's up," Mike called down to them. When they saw someone approaching, the examinees gathered so they could all be led out simultaneously. Well done, well done. You all did a good job, in my eyes you're heroes, all of you," an elderly woman in a nurse's outfit said as she walked towards them. She gave one of the children some candy and grinned, saying, "Here, have some candy for a job well done." One said courteously, "Oh, thank you. Don't eat all of them at once." The nurse chuckled as she walked around before eventually stopping in front of Izuku, who still had his childhood friend in his arms. "How bad is it with her?" she asked. He answered, "A broken leg and nausea." The woman nodded and then gave Uraraka a quick kiss on the forehead, causing her body to glow and her leg to start healing. "Oh dear, well, I think I can help with that." As they all watched her perform her magic, one of the students exclaimed, "Whoa, who is she?" "Hang on, I recognize you." Izuku noted. Surprised, he remarked, "You're the youthful heroine. Recovery girl. You're one of the doctors who was there when my quirk first appeared," he added. "Oh, it's been a while hasn't it, Izzy?" she replied in surprise before teasing him with the nickname she came up with for him, causing him to pout at the nickname he found childish. "How many times have I had to tell you to never call me that?" he whined, causing everyone else to snicker in amusement. Now, don't be so fussy." The nurse hero chided him, before noticing his scar. My, how on earth did you get that scar? With your quirk's regeneration capabilities, that shouldn't be possible." "Tisk. I thought you were supposed to be able to tell that kinda stuff," the boy scoffed. Recovery girl reprimanded, "Oi, don't give me that attitude, young man." This caused everyone else to laugh while the rest were still talking about how powerful Izuku was. Didn't they see what he did? He risked life and limb to save that girl. The bespectacled boy in blue said to himself as he watched the immortal boy hold Uraraka tightly as she was still unconscious. But what kind of history does he have with that girl? He's holding her like he's terrified of possibly losing her again. Why? He muttered analytically. I suppose time will be the one to tell that tale. He made the choice. Later, a few days later, Izuku was having dinner with his mom and currently the sin of greed was spacing out while trying to eat a fish, which had the unfortunate consequence of freaking out poor Inko. Izuku darling? Are you okay?" she asked in concern. Her voice caused him to snap out of his trance. "Sorry mom, just sigh thinking about what happened at UA, he replied with a sigh. "What happened sweetheart? Did something bad happen?" his mother questioned. To get her attention, he said, "No, but something did shock me pretty good." "What is it?" asked Inko. She dropped her utensils in utter shock as he revealed, "Mom, I don't know how, but Ochako is alive." What? Are you sure?" she asked him as she managed to regain her composure. "Dead sure. I saw her with my own 2 eyes, and saved her when the past almost repeated itself in the mock fight exams," he said seriously before he looked down. "I don't know if she blames me for what happened before or not, but if I get into UA, I can find out everything," he went on. The woman grinned. That's great news. She told him, I'm so happy for you, sweetie. They resumed their meal after Izuku returned the smile. After trying unsuccessfully to contact All Might a few hours later, Izuku concentrated on strengthening his muscles until his mother burst through the door holding a letter. With great excitement, she exclaimed, Izuku, your results are here. He took the letter, went to his room, and discovered a hollow projector inside the envelope. Booyah! I am here as a projection, exclaimed All Might as he materialized before the boy. Before his face became perplexed, he smirked and said, okay, let's hear what's gonna be said. Wait, what brings him to Ua? I realize it's been a while, but a lot of paperwork goes hand in hand with power. He said, you see, I didn't just come here to fight villains. You're looking at the newest Ua faculty member. I'm so sorry, young man, he went on. What? The immortal's eyes widened in surprise. Yes, right before we start. What? Who is being ostentatious? All right, I want to tell him something before I wrap it up. Hold on, how many of these tasks must I complete? All Might said to the cameraman before sighing. Okay. First of all, you tied with someone else after passing the written exam and earning about 50 hero points in the practical. Typically, your written results were used to make this determination. However, there was another factor in your case. An additional element? The boy with the green hair scowled in perplexity. But first, take a look. Here's a quick video for your enjoyment. As a video of Uraraka began to play, the peace symbol spoke. Pardon me, but could you please take a moment? She questioned Present Mike. Yes. What are you in need of? Did he ask? If that one boy, who is essentially invincible, received a C on the mock fight exam, could he get some of my points? She inquired, and Izuku knew right away that she was referring to him. Shish, would she go so far for me? Touched by her thoughtfulness, he blushed and said to himself. Oh, you shouldn't be concerned about him. You don't have to do that because he scored a lot. Present Mike rubbed her hair and said, but I'm sure he'll appreciate your kind heart. As you can see, people are inspired by your deeds rather than your eccentricities. In light of this, how can a hero course turn away someone who is so committed to serving others at all costs? That's what makes a hero, after all, said All Might. Therefore, we included rescue points, another element that had been overlooked. Points for rescue? With his gaze fixed on the projection, the boy pondered. Those who assisted others during the exam are given these points after a panel of judges considers their actions. You received 60 rescue points as a result of your actions, Izuku Midoriya, and Ochako Uraraka, 25 rescue points, cried All Might. He turned to the screen and said, Welcome, Izuku. You are now a member of the Hero Academia. You passed the exam, and we are waiting for you both at the UA campus. Izuku smiled before he hurried out of his room to inform his mother of the news, and All Might ended with his trademark grin. He needed to move forward and pursue his immortal academia. UA High Observation Room. All of the teachers were watching the video feed from the aforementioned trials and analyzing the outcomes and performances of the participating students in the observation deck of the UA entrance exam grounds. A voice with a cowboy accent said, There sure are a lot of amazing new students coming in this year. The first place contender had 0 rescue points. While everyone else was trying to get away from the obstacle, he stayed focused and let the small ones get in close. That kid's tough. A seductive female voice continued, and on the other end of the spectrum, the fourth place contender got 50 hero points and 60 rescue points. And he seemed to enjoy every bit of pain the robots put him through. He's a masochist. Interesting, she thought. The cowboy questioned with a hint of worry, should we be concerned about that? And then shook his head. Then there's how he blew back that robot. Been a while since I saw that happen, he continued. Another male voice concurred, that it has. But at what cost? It broke his limbs like twigs. I mean, if it wasn't for this kid's immortality quirk, he would have been screwed. In agreement, the female voice said, I agree. He has a lot to learn, it seems. A man listening to them off to the side sighed. Somewhere else. When Izuku arrived at the Dagaba beach, his mentor was already waiting for him. He ran up to the man and called, Hey, sensei. What's up? Yo, young Midoriya. All Might grinned and gave his student a high five. He told the boy, congratulations on getting in. Thanks. It was almost too easy, keyword being, almost. Still took a few injuries, but hey, I can take the pain, he laughed. The blonde nodded and said, So I see. You seem in better spirits today. Any particular reason why? He inquired. To the astonishment of his mentor, the boy responded, That friend I told you about, the one I thought was dead? She's alive? He questioned, wait, seriously? How? Before an idea struck him. He grimaced and said, wait, it was Ochako Uraraka, wasn't it? Why didn't I realize it? She had the same surname as young Tada? Izuku nodded and then became serious, saying, yeah, that is kinda obvious. I don't know how she's alive, but I'm not wasting this. At the same time though, I need to find out how she survived that accident, he said. But the man hummed, yes, so, how did it feel to first use one for all? He inquired. His apprentice hummed to himself, searching for a suitable analogy. A few seconds later, he had one. His shrug made the man in front of him laugh uncomfortably. It felt like my brain when it was about to explode when I shoved it in a microwave. With some blood dripping from his mouth, he remarked, that's a little morbid and disturbing, but okay. Well, when you're trying to control one for all, try imagining anything to help your head not to explode, he said. Before you went buff and crushed a couple of cans in his hand, the man explained, at your current level I'd say you'd be able to use around, say, 8 or 10% at best. Right now your body is overflowing with energy, so you'll need to work on managing your output. Once you figure out a way to safely summon it, you can use the power however you wish, he stated. Before some onlookers recognized All Might, Izuku grinned and said, sounds like a plan. It made him groan, aw shit. As they began to run down the beach, the number one hero said, all right, now we run. I have given you a flame, but it is only a flicker. It will eventually turn into a raging fire. You will soon surpass me as a hero, and I will be able to retire with my career finished. Well, deep stuff, okay? Later, Izuku was about to leave as he was getting ready for school, but his mother stopped him. Izuku, are you sure you have everything? You didn't just pack action figures, did you? She inquired. He responded angrily, oi, I'm not bringing action figures to school. That's just stupid. Seriously, who brings action figures to high school? She said, okay, but Izuku, as he looked at her, with joyful tears in her eyes, she told him, I'm really proud of you, son. After giving her a long look, Izuku gave her a hug. With a smile, he said softly, thanks mom. After saying that, the boy went inside the school and began to find his classroom. As he made his way down the hallways, he kept asking himself, Class 1A, Class 1A, fuck, where is it? Until he arrived at his destination. A door that was fucking enormous and had the letter 1A on it. As he opened the door, he deadpanned. Okay, there have got to be fucking giants with doors like this being involved. Bakugo had his feet on a desk when the same engine-legged boy from the exams yelled at him, get your feet off the desk. It's the first day and you're already disrespecting this institution by scuffing up school property, you cretin. The blonde Pomeranian boy retorted, oh, back off. You can't tell me what to do. At what he saw, Izuku could only deadpan. The fox Sin yelled, oi, Kachan, over here man, as he entered. Although he was wearing his regular uniform, he had several of the top buttons undone and his tie dangling loosely around his neck. The blonde detonator smirked as he saw his friend standing in the doorway. He said, hey, Deku, took ya long enough to get here. The boy smiled and said, ya no, fashionably late and all. Then, as everyone was staring at him, Tenya Iida, the bespectacled boy, who had just finished speaking to Bakugo, approached him. He bowed and said, hello. I'm Tenya Iida, and I want to apologize for the way I acted before. After giving him a brief glance, Izuku waved him away. Apology accepted. Just be mindful of what others are probably thinking from now on, okay? He inquired. Right. Though I must say this, you knew there was something more to the exam and acted on it while we completely overlooked it. I admit, as a student, you are far superior to me, Iida responded. He pondered with a drop of perspiration, I want to say that's true, but, before he heard a voice behind him. Izuku turned to Uraraka, who said, I'd recognize that green hair anywhere. Izuku, is that you? From behind him. Oh Ochako, he exclaimed, startled, and then impulsively gave her a hug. Oh man, you have no idea how great it is to see you again, I thought I lost you. As he floated in on his green pillow, Tada said, hey, get your hands off my sister. As he released her, the immortal dully inquired, seriously? You're gonna take that pillow into class so you can fall asleep on it? Izuku had released Uraraka, and she was flushed. She stammered, yeah, it's good to see you again too, Izuku. Iida nodded when he realized his theory was accurate. Oh, so I was right. You two do know each other. But this generally cordial conversation was rudely cut short. Behind them, a fresh voice said, if you're just here to make friends, You can pack up your things now and leave. When they turned to look behind them, they saw a man lying on the ground in a sleeping bag with the most exhausted look they had ever seen. They had only one thought as they gazed at the man. How come that thing exists? With troubled expressions on their faces, they pondered. The man rose from the sleeping bag and turned to face them. He was dressed entirely in black, wore a scarf, and had long, disheveled black hair that appeared to have gone days without a good shower. He also looked extremely worn out. It took you 8 seconds to shut up. That's not gonna work, time is precious. Rational students would know that, he said. Izuku spat angrily. PSH, great. He's one of those types. Just my luck. Alright. My name's Shoto Aizawa, and I'm your homeroom teacher, he said. He's our instructor. Everyone pondered incredulously. Aizawa held up the school tracksuit and said, now, put these on and head outside. Everyone was on the practice course outside a few minutes later, and as their teacher explained what they would be doing, the children questioned, what? A quirk assessment test. Uraraka complained, but orientation, we're gonna miss it. If you want to make the big leagues, then you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Aizawa quipped. He turned to Bakugo and said, we aren't bound by tradition here at UA, so I can run my class however I want. So, today we'll be taking a test to gauge your potential. Bakugo, what was your farthest softball throw in middle school? He inquired. After a moment, he answered, about 67 meters, I think. Aizawa tossed him a ball and said, try doing it again while using your quirk this time. You've all been taking standardized tests for most of your lives, and the Board of Education keeps having us think that we're all equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational, so here at UA we try to rectify this oversight. Bakugo approached the circle and nodded. Before you wound up and threw, he said, okay, I'll add some heat to it and drop your jaws, so get ready. He shouted, die. Boom. Before the ball touched down, everyone watched it fly through the air. The weary instructor looked at the distance on his phone. 706.3 meters. Izuku whistled, apparently impressed. Whistle, nice throw, as expected of my number one rival, he laughed. The exploder laughed and grinned back. Hey, damn straight. A boy with peculiarly shaped elbows exclaimed, now this is what I'm talking about, getting to use our quirks as much as we want. This is beginning to seem like a lot of fun, Uraraka grinned. King yawned as he relaxed on his pillow, saying, I dunno, seems like a real waste of energy to me, sis. A girl with pink skin who strangely resembled a female Majin Buu smilingly exclaimed, I wanna have a go at this. As everyone turned back to face him, the man said, so this looks like fun, huh? Idiots. You have 3 years to get through this school and become heroes. You think it's all going to be fun and games? After today, the person in last place in this test will be expelled. Izuku and Bakugo merely narrowed their eyes at his words, but everyone else gasped in surprise. Uraraka argued, but you can't do that. We only just got here. Even if it is the first day, you can't just kick us out. We worked so hard to get here, so making us leave isn't fair. Aizawa retorted, and life is supposed to be fair. Like natural disasters? Or power-hungry villains? Or accidents that destroy entire cities? No, the world is full of unfairness. And it's your job as heroes to combat that. Here at UA we will throw one hardship after another at you to make you go past your limits. Plus ultra style. Izuku glared at his teacher and said, do yourself a favor and don't snap at her like that again, or else we're gonna have words, sensei. Izuku, Uraraka exclaimed, startled. Iida reprimanded, Midoriya, you can't just talk to a teacher like that. The boy with the green hair said, oh what, and let this go unnoticed? He's hazing us for God's sake. Hell, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he already knows who he's gonna expel right off the bat. In all honesty, Tada acknowledged, that honestly wouldn't surprise me either, frankly. Aizawa appeared to give Izuku a rather disgusting glance. You certainly don't hold back when you're talking, do you? He inquired. With a casual shrug, the immortal teen said, not like anyone can shut me up. As the test started, the man remarked, HMPH, well let's get a move on, we're wasting time standing around here. -50-meter dash. Iida and a girl with a frog-like quirk started the dash. With their peculiarities, they sprinted to the finish line as soon as the signal was given. A camera robot yelled, runners ready. Set. Go. As the two took off. By the time the two reached the end of the lane, it called, 3.45 seconds. 3.54 seconds. Iida stood at the other end of the track, the engines on his legs smoking. thinking, at 50 meters, I can only get to third gear. Present Mike declared, Tenya Iida. His quirk. Engine. As you can see, his legs are pretty dang fast. With her tongue protruding, the frog girl halted her hopping and turned back to the track. The text next to her said, Suyu Asui. Before hopping and firing his laser, the same blonde with the gaudy belt said, Nice try Mon Amy, but you're just not showing enough panache. He exclaimed, Let your power shine, as he launched himself forward for a few seconds. Yuga Aoyama. His quirk. Naval laser. That's right, a belly button laser. He can't shoot it forever, though. Mike explained. The pink girl walks past Yuga as this is announced, and he falls to the ground before rising and using his quirk once more. Shooting my beautiful beam for more than a second hurts my tummy, the brunette replied. Everyone let out a mental groan. What a tool. Uraraka, who was running alongside Tada, came next. While her brother chose to ride Chastiful, his shapeshifting spear, like a surfboard, she chose to wear lighter clothing and shoes. She yelled, Okay, let's go, as they began their turn. Ochako Uraraka. Her quirk. Zero gravity. She can nullify the gravitational pull on anything she touches, but if she uses it too much, she totally hurls, Mike answered. The robot said, 4.45 seconds. 2.25 seconds. Bakugo and Izuku came last, and before they began, the boy with the green hair gripped Iida's hand. After stealing some of the boy's speed, he muttered, Snatch, and began breathing while directing 5% of one for all into his legs. The boys then started running, Bakugo using his explosions to move forward, Izuku using Iida's speed, and one for all. Bakugo was told by the robot, 3.25 seconds, 2.15 seconds, Izuku was told the same. In other words, the Fox Sin won the dash. The weary instructor squinted suspiciously. How did he manage to move so quickly? I'll have to watch him, he thought. Long jumping while standing. The standing long jump came next, and this time Izuku chose to take advantage of Suyu Asui's leaping ability. He whispered, Snatch, as he grabbed the air and used one for all to bump his new power before jumping and landing 19 meters, following Asui, second place. This time, Aizawa observed his behavior and took note. So that's what they meant by power sapping, he murmured. Grasp power. Then came grip strength, and this time, in order to avoid suspicion, Izuku chose to forego his quirk and rely on one for all, raising the percentage to his cap at 10%. However, as he did, crunch. Everyone turned to him in surprise when he unintentionally crushed it, particularly Aizawa, who hadn't witnessed him using his quirk and wasn't prepared for that to happen. Bakugo grimaced as the boy laughed sheepishly, sorry. He moaned, Damn it Deku, always gotta embarrass me. Sidesteps. The side steps came next, and Izuku struggled with them due to the articulation he had to perform. Conversely, Tada was having a great time because he was able to bounce himself in between the lines at insane speeds using Chastefal's pillow form. Alright, that's just absurd. The green-haired immortal pondered as he gazed at King before catching sight of a midget with purple hair and a purple ball mohawk performing a similar action. Oh, fuck off, he mentally added, feeling rather offended by that. The ball throw came next, and Uraraka was the one who achieved the incredible outcome. She used her special talent to literally launch a ball into orbit, earning a symbol in the process. Infinity! Exclaimed the class, without Tada or Izuku, in shock. Aizawa informed him, Midoriya, you're up next. The sin of greed yawned casually as he approached and took a ball. Everyone could see that his hunch had grown more noticeable before he straightened up and rolled his arm around before making multiple grasping motions and draining each student's strength, which caused his arm to bulge. He then wound up and prepared to throw, running one for all through his arm before bringing it forward in a throwing motion. However, it was at this point that Aizawa took action. Izuku was shocked when the exhausted man blinked and his eyes turned red before he could finish the throw. The immortal also lost all of the strength he had taken with him, along with one for all's power. Hey yo! What the fuck? He exclaimed, surveying his surroundings. He kept looking around while All Might observed the scene in the distance. My quirk stopped working. What's going on? He exclaimed. As he watched, the number one hero reflected, Young Midoriya, it appears that you have captured Aizawa's interest. Izuku turned and glared at Aizawa, who said, I erased your irrational and unsightly quirk. You've been stealing the physical attributes of people this entire time, he continued. The boy rolled his eyes and said, well yeah, that's kinda what my quirk does, Captain Obvious. Then, as if his scarf came to life, he saw the goggles on Aizawa's neck. Oh, fuck me sideways. There's only one person I know of that wears goggles like those. Am I right, Eraserhead? He replied with a sigh. Aizawa said, you certainly know your heroes. But that's besides the point. Were you planning on breaking your bones again? Waiting on someone to save your useless body? Izuku snorted. I can save my own body, thank you very much. Have you even bothered to look at the file on my quirk? He inquired. He began to add, I mean come on, I'm a freaking immortal for crying out Luo. But Aizawa began pulling him in his own direction with his scarf. The man asked, do you honestly expect that aspect of your quirk to save you every time? He went on, what are you going to do in the event it fails? Izuku said, funny thing about being immortal, while deceiving Aizawa into tightening his arms until crack. Everyone heard the sound of his spine, and Aizawa's grip on Izuku loosened in surprise as he blinked, negating the effect of his quirk. Shota Aizawa, aka Eraserhead. He can erase the quirk of anyone he looks at, but the effect ends when he blinks, said the present Mike. While All Might appeared to be about to blow a gasket, the other students watched in horror, believing that one of their classmates had died. However, suddenly, bam! Ah! The eraser hero squealed in agony as he collapsed to his knees, struggling to hold onto his manhood. Izuku was standing over him, knee out. As he folded his arms, the boy concluded, it never fails. Uraraka was the worst of all, and everyone else appeared to have almost had a heart attack. Izuku Midoriya. His quirk. Fox Sin. He can steal the physical attributes of someone or physical objects, even manifestations from quirks. And it also basically makes him immortal. It's a truly 1 in a million quirk for 1 in a million guy, Mike exclaimed. I deserved that. The man squeaked out of his grounding and then he stumbled back up. No shit, Sherlock. You broke his spine. Ochako shook her fist at him and screamed angrily. Actually I broke my spine, I just tricked him into doing it. Izuku laughed. It's a trick I did ever since I was a kid. Bakugo shouted, yeah, and it gets even more annoying each time. You know you love it, boasted the immortal. As the pain subsided, Aizawa sighed, just take your second shot. As before, Izuku stretched a little before getting ready. He's right, the more severe the injury, the longer it takes me to heal. I must therefore make it as tiny as he pondered as an idea struck him out of nowhere. Although he adopted a throwing stance, he applied one for all in a unique way. Since his middle finger was his final point of contact with the ball, he directed it there rather than through his entire right arm. When the ball flew, his idea paid off, and a loud noise could even be heard. The other pupils watched in disbelief at what they saw. To find out how far away the throw was, Aizawa looked at his phone, 708 meters. Hey, sensei, called Izuku. The man's green-haired student was yelling at him with a broken middle finger that was obviously getting better when he looked up. How do you like me now? He boasted, grinning scornfully. Aizawa's expression changed to one of admiration as he pushed his hair back. This kid, he exclaimed, gazing at him. All Might, meanwhile, was stunned. At the final point of contact, he channeled one for all, maximizing the throw while reducing damage and regeneration time. He thought, startled. What on earth is going on, young Midoriya? How did you go about becoming so awesome? When the class returned, everyone had finished the ball throw and everything was over. The remaining tests were about to be completed. Later, following the results of the remaining tests, Bakugo came in 3rd place, just behind a child named Shoto Todoroki, and Tada came in 6th place, just behind his sister. And in the sweet spot of 4th place was Izuku. Minoru Mineta, the odd midget out, was the last person in. The immortal thought, welp, that midget's definitely out. Indeed, he was escorted out shortly after, and Tada replaced him as the 20th pupil. Everyone was left wondering, though, if Aizawa would also send home the default last-place finisher. The tension in the air returned as a result. Everyone was taken aback when Aizawa said, and just so you guys know, I won't be sending the default last-placer back home. Iida asked, wait, what about what you said before? That was just a rational deception to make sure you gave it your all in the tests, the man replied. A black girl with spiky hair said, yeah, I'm surprised you guys never figured it out. It was a comment. Sorry, I guess I should have said something. She thought about it. Ya think? Izuku exclaimed angrily, expressing what the whole class was thinking. He left them alone and said, anyway, that's all for today. Pick up a syllabus on your way out. However, he ran into All Might as he turned a corner. The man said, that was a rotten trick, Aizawa. The unkempt man said, at least it worked. I've got a promising batch this time. Still though, a rational deception. That's cute, but you're not exactly known for being lighthearted. You have no problems with expelling several students, anyone you deem unworthy. All Might replied. Which can only mean that you see the same potential in young Midoriya as I do. That eraser hero shrugged and said, maybe I do. Who's to say? Then again, he did have the courage to knee me in the nuts, so that's one way to see it. He thought about it. The peace symbol sighed, and I apologize. Unfortunately, he does have a bit of a mean streak in him when he gets riled up like that. But he doesn't have an evil bone in his body, I can vouch for it. The erasure hero questioned, you seem to know him personally, isn't it a little early to be playing favorites? Before his voice took on a slightly solemn tone, the man stated, I have heard things about him, and what drives him forward. He views his quirk as a curse. He's trying to make the most of it by becoming a hero, he said. Aizawa nodded and turned to leave, saying, well then, I'll be sure to help speed things along. Somewhere else, Izuku and Bakugo were walking together as the green-haired boy yawned as the children began to make their way home. He was relying on his blonde friend for support because he was exhausted and felt heavy from using his quirk so much. Until Iida stopped them, that is. Izuku greeted his classmate wearily, Yawn hey Iida. The boy inquired worriedly, are you feeling all right, Midoriya? You seem rather worn out. As he fought to keep his eyes open, the boy answered, just seriously tired. That happens when I overuse my quirk. Bakugo shook his best friend awake and said, oi, stay awake. Sleeping on the streets is never fun for anyone. Wait up. Uraraka called out as she sprinted in their direction. Are you going to the station? Wait for me, I'll join you. The immortal with the green hair became alert almost immediately. Uraraka hey. He tried to face her with a smile, but his body still felt heavy, so he fell on his face. Then he deadpanned, ow. The girl who controlled gravity inquired worriedly, are you okay? As Bakugo and Iida assisted Izuku in standing up, Bakugo clarified, he's fine. He's just tired due to his quirk being overused. Iida said, hey, you're the Infinity Girl. She grinned and said, I'm Ochako Uraraka. She turned to Bakugo and Izuku and said, you must be Tenya Iida. And man, you two have changed a lot since we were kids. Hey, Deku, where'd you get that scar? When she was, presumably, dead, the boy remarked, PSH, I thought you guys were supposed to be able to see us from the other side. Then Ochako winced, oh, that. She tried to explain herself, muttering, yeah, Man, how'd I explain this? The two competitors exchanged bewildered looks. Iida said, what do you mean? As Taita floated up to them on his pillow, his voice said, she was going to say that she was brought back by someone's quirk. Waving, Bakugo said, oh, hey King. Who the hell used their quirk to bring her back? Izuku inquired. After a brief glance around, Taita and Ochako turned back to face them. The boy sitting on the pillow said, we can't say who it was here, too many years. Uraraka said to them, come on, let's go somewhere else. They then proceeded to the station, where the twins told the three about the incident and disclosed that the individual who had used their quirk on Ochako was a nurse who had a soul manipulation quirk. The Pomeranian blonde furrowed her brows and said, the hell, Izuku, do you know anyone who fits that description? No, not really. Of the heroes at least. I think Recovery Girl had a sidekick who had a quirk like that, but I can't remember her name. The immortal sighed. Iida hummed thoughtfully, this is truly a vexing mystery, indeed. That's why I can't stand it. It never should have happened to you in the first place, sis. King said to his sister. And it's all that greedy jerk's fault. Uraraka yelled, can you not talk about this now? She said to him, Taita, go ahead, I'll catch up. Just as he was about to object, he nodded and drifted away. When he had left, she turned to face Izuku and, to his surprise, embraced him. Ochako, I just want you to know, I'm sorry, for not being able to save you. He said to her, I hope you can forgive me. You silly boy. There's no need to ask for my forgiveness. I never blamed you for what happened to me before to begin with. She said softly. The boy in her arms began sobbing after hearing her words, and he then began sobbing into her shoulder while giving her a tight hug. Izuku whimpered, thank you, as the two kept their embrace going. Bakugo grinned a little as he took in the scene. He hoped that Izuku would be able to escape the abyss of depression he had fallen into and thought, perhaps things will finally get better for him now. The following day, Because the majority of the following school day was made up of standard and interesting high school classes, it was rather uneventful. These were taught by the clone hero. Ectoplasm in math, Present Mike in English, Aizawa in history, the construction hero Powerloader in science, and the R-rated hero, Midnight in literature and sexual education. The Fox Sin thought boredly, we may have heroes teaching us, but the subjects they're covering are pretty bland, in all honesty. He felt much better yesterday than he had in a long time after his brief encounter with Uraraka. It greatly aided him to know that his childhood sweetheart did not hold him responsible for her passing. Conversely, her brother. While Midnight read them the short story from their textbook in her sultry, smooth voice, Izuku could feel King constantly making holes in the back of his mind, even though, to be honest, it only made him feel more sleepy. They all began to make their way to Hero Basic Training, their last class, when the bell rang. It was instructed by none other than. Everyone's attention was immediately captured when the peace symbol exclaimed, I am here. Walking through the door like a hero, and walked dramatically to his desk. A redhead with spiky hair exclaimed, hey, it's All Might, with a start. Whoa, so he is teaching here, exclaimed the odd arm boy. And isn't he wearing his Silver Age costume? Sue inquired. With eager looks in return, he yelled, okay, students, today, you've heard about what it means to be a hero, but I will be teaching you through one thing, battle. Bakugo grinned and exclaimed, actual fighting. Now this is what I'm talking about. Izuku moaned, oh, this is gonna be a pain. I can't wait. Then, in a show of excitement, he rolled his tongue over his long canines, letting everyone know that he is a masochist. Shuddering, Iida murmured, why'd I feel slightly disturbed by that? As their costume cases materialized, All Might informed them, and part of being a pro is looking good. These costumes were made based on your quirk registration forms, so get changed and meet me at Training Ground Beta. The class exclaimed, yes sir, before gathering their cases and heading to change. Somewhere else, All Might saw all of the students' costumes as he waited for them to leave. They say clothes make the pros, and lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, you are the proof. From now on you are all heroes in training. He laughed. Now, shall we get started, you bunch of newbies? Izuku arrived at the front of the group and yelled, damn right we should get started. From the back, Izuku was wearing a green leather jacket that was unbuttoned at the top to reveal his well-defined chest and had silver studs running the length of it. Additionally, he wears a metal respirator with a cowl around his neck. He wore a pair of green leather pants, a pair of green leather boots with spikes at the bottom of the heel, and no shirt, exposing his fox tattoo on the same abdomen and his clear 8-pack. All Might smiled as he glanced at his successor's clothing. He thought approvingly, he certainly has a good sense of style. Then he saw the cowl, which resembled a green version of his hair, and the respirator, which was made of metal and had a diamond-like shape. Could he be more overt? He let out an inward sigh. Uraraka's face turned beet red the moment she saw the boy's costume. It was difficult for her not to gawk at the eye candy that was in front of her because Izuku was flaunting so much skin. Her childhood friend had changed so much that she thought, wow, he's ripped. She approached him in her costume and said, wow, Deku, when did you get this well built? Which included a large pair of pink cushioned high-heeled boots, a pink belt, acupressure wrist guards, and a skin-tight black and pink bodysuit. Her round, plump ass, perky C-cups, and shapely figure were all highlighted by the tightness of her suit, which was almost pushing her into D territory. The immortal looked at her and licked his teeth once more before shrugging and saying, oh, I've been like this for a long time. He smiled and said, you on the other hand have changed a lot. She said shyly, I haven't changed that much, have I? He nodded and leaned into her ear, saying, well, considering that I haven't seen you since we were kids, I'd say so. Turning back to All Might, who was describing the exercise, he whispered, speaking of, I hope you haven't forgotten the promise that I made to you back then. Most of you have likely noticed that most battles against villains happen outside. What you don't know is that the true acts of villainy happen indoors. Dealing, smuggling, the like. He started. For this scenario, you will all be divided into teams. One will be heroes, and the other will be villains. The villains will be in charge of guarding a fake nuclear weapon housed somewhere in the building, and the heroes will be going in to either capture them, or the weapon. The only way for the villains to win is to capture the heroes or protect their weapon, he clarified. Just before they were divided into teams, Izuku nodded and said, so basically an action movie setup, gotcha. Bakugo and Tada, Izuku and Uraraka, and Iida and Momo Yaoyorozu, the girl who won the quirk assessment test and received recommendations. All right, He began, reaching into two black and white boxes marked Villain and Hero, respectively, before saying, "The first teams to fight will be these guys," he exclaimed, displaying an A and a D. Bakugo and Tada faced off against Izuku and Uraraka. Izuku moaned. He was willing to fight Bakugo, but he wasn't particularly interested in taking on King because of their animosity and his peculiarity. He sighed, "This is probably going to suck." After that, the two started preparing for their match while conversing with Bakugo and Tada. "Do you honestly think that Izuku actually cares about my sister? That it's not just an act? I mean, I heard the eyewitness reports. People saw him push her towards the car," says King. Bakugo put on his gauntlets and sighed, "If that's the only thing you're going off of, then you're an idiot. The thing about eyewitness reports is that they're always conflicting. There's a high chance some saw something the ones you heard didn't see," he clarified. The boy said plainly, "Then I guess I'll have to ask him myself." When he first saw Izuku, he was dressed in the same hero costume. He was transforming Chastiful into its spear form at this point. As he finished getting ready, the exploder thought, "They do say the best place to get the real story is from the source. Somewhere else." The immortal boy was attempting to watch for Kachin or King as Izuku and Uraraka entered the building. However, as they turned the corner, Chastiful appeared out of nowhere and changed into a number of tiny blue gimlet knives that began to swarm him, stab him, and cover him in cuts. The boy moaned, Fuck, I guess we're doing this now." King nodded as he emerged from around another corner, saying, "Yes we are, Izuku." Everyone in the observer deck, fortunately with audio, was watching the fight in the meantime. The redhead, Eijiro Kirishima, exclaimed, "A sneak attack? Really? What kind of man pulls cheap crap like that? He's simply playing to the element of a villain. Sneak attacks are common with them," All Might said. As he watched, the peace symbol reflected, "Izuku, I hope you understand that, when you're in my classroom, I will grade you just as I would with any other student, without playing favorites." Izuku still had multiple cuts on him as Chastiful changed into its spear shape, but they abruptly grew worse when King snapped his fingers. As the wounds worsened, he stated, "Status, promotion. Tada Uraraka. Quirk. Disaster. This ability allows him to exercise complete control over life and death by altering and controlling matter at a molecular level. For example, he can turn a shallow scratch into a fatal wound, a minor poison into a lethal toxin, and a small benign growth into a cancerous tumor that can devour a body whole. It also gives him complete control over nature, allowing him to manipulate various flora, letting it flourish or perish in moments. This power was originally described as the reason that Tada is able to completely draw out the mysterious qualities of the spirit spear, Chastiful, as disaster can modify the natural status of something and can change its shape. Now that's a truly terrifying power," Mike reported that. The floating boy asked, "Now, I'm going to ask some questions, and you're going to answer them. Got it?" As his wounds started to heal, Izuku slowly got up and looked him in the eye before turning to face Uraraka. He said to her, "Uraraka, go. Get the weapon, now." But she attempted to object. "Go, I'll be right behind you when I'm done here," he said. After a moment of hesitation, the girl with the astronaut theme nodded and continued. King turned back to the Fox Sin and sighed. As Izuku's wounds healed and the green-haired boy produced his 3-section staff, he said, "Okay, Izuku the Undead. Let's get this over with, shall we?" The immortal, poised for battle, answered, "Took the words right out of my mouth." It was time to resolve long-standing disputes. Training Ground 2B at UA High. With his support weapon, the Spirit Spear Chastiful, in base form and aimed at the Sin of Greed, Tada floated in front of Izuku as the two engaged in combat. Izuku sealed a hole in his forehead and said, "You should know that what happened back then wasn't me trying to get my quirk to evolve like this." With his favorite support item spinning a little, Tada raised an eyebrow and asked, "Then what exactly was it?" With his 3-section staff ready, the undead immortal retorted, "It was me trying to save the girl I loved. Simple as that." This caused the grizzly Sin to growl. His hand began to move, causing Chastiful to attack Izuku on its own. "Liar," he cried. The green-haired teenager tried to avoid as many of the attacks as he could in the confined area, but it was challenging, so some of them did get through. As he allowed his severed hand to regrow, Izuku remarked, "You remember it all, right, King? We all lived in the same neighborhood. You, Ochako, me and Kachan. One of our favorite pastimes being playing King of the Hill with all of the other kids. Which you always cheated at," he continued. A good brother would have stayed behind and kept Uraraka company, but what did you do, Tada? He said, delivering a flying side kick that the shorter boy could hardly avoid. And then, it all changed when we were all gonna go to that junior heroes summer camp. And Uraraka got sick. He yelled angrily, you abandoned her to go to that camp and play hero. You left her alone, with abandon. King commanded, shut up, as he changed Chastiful into its push knife forms and caused it to begin swarming. Izuku began to dodge, and the impact created a cloud of dust that the green-haired boy used as a temporary escape route. Somewhere else. Observation deck. Wait, what was Midoriya talking about just now? Inquired the boy with the spiky red hair, Eijiro Kirishima. You know what he's talking about, Iida? By shrugging, the runner said, no, I do not. He might have some knowledge of Izuku's past, but not all of it had been revealed to him yet. Tsuyu Asui said, it sounded like the two had a falling out of some sort. With a disgusted expression on his face, a blonde with lightning streaks, Denki Kaminari, said, URG, that aside though, is anyone gonna talk about how gross it is to watch Midoriya regenerate? Momo said, looking disgusted, yeah, that's kinda disturbing to watch. Disturbing as it may be, young Midoriya's quirk is still a useful tool. Take note students, he does not run from pain, but rather embraces and revels in it. That is what makes him unique. All Might stated to them. As they watched, the bird-headed boy Fumikage Tokiyami asked, how does the saying go? No pain no gone. Somewhere else. With Izuku and Tada, Izuku gasped as a large hole in his stomach slowly closed and multiple deep gashes closed on his torso. Now he saw Tada standing before him, holding Chastiful in its fourth form. A gigantic, four-armed teddy bear that shared the same design as its pillow form. With the bear beside him, he said, Chastiful, Form 4, Guardian. Seriously? You're just gonna deny every word I say of what happened back then and just go with what you know? You're just going to ignore the fact that you might be wrong? The immortal side? Well then, why don't you tell me what happened in the 3 months me and Bakugo were gone before the accident then? The kid asked. Izuku shouted, fine, I will, as they swung at one another once more. Somewhere else, at the moment, Bakugo was leaning against the fictitious missile, anticipating Uraraka or Izuku to try to grab it. Uraraka was waiting for the ideal opportunity to attack from behind a pillar, but she paused when she heard Bakugo begin to discuss ideas aloud. Okay, so if Uraraka gets here first I should be able to take her down no problem. She isn't exactly that combat ready, but I'll probably have to hold back or else Deku might try to snap my back, hey, but not before I snap his first, he replied with a devilish grin. She sighed and thought, to be honest, I'd rather not fight at all right now. However, the blonde turned toward her as soon as she did. He walked toward her, cracking his knuckles, and said, "'Bout time y'all got here, pink cheeks." With an insane expression in his eyes, he continued, "So, you ready to fight for your life? 'Cause if you don't go all out on me, I will kill you." He's settling into the role, which is great, she said to herself. And he has a peculiarity to support that as well. Somewhere else. As the two fought back with Tada and Izuku, the immortal was furiously reminiscing about the time he and Uraraka had spent together prior to the accident. The time when Fox Sin, his quirk, was known by a simpler moniker. Snatch. Rewind. Izuku's former home, 10 years prior to. A few days had passed since Tada, Bakugo, and other children had departed for the junior Ochako, who had just recovered from her cold, was devastated that she was unable to attend Heroes summer camp in Osaka. She couldn't let her parents say goodbye because they had saved a lot of money for it. She was drinking a glass of her favorite bubble milk tea and pouting on top of a jungle gym when she heard someone climbing up the rock wall and singing a simple song. A voice sang, "Just a drop on your tongue adds 10 years to your life. A big swallow gives you 100 more. Drink it all and you'll live forever." As a younger Izuku ascended to the top of the jungle gym, he instantly knew how he wanted the travel glass of delectable tea to play in his new game after eyeing it. He smiled, rubbing his hands together and licking his lips. "Ha ha. There it is. The fountain of youth. Eternal life and immortality, here I come," he said. Ochako snapped, "No, no immortality for you, shoo," without giving it any thought. Before he could recognize the girl in front of him, the boy asked, "Huh? Hey Uraraka, what you doing here? Why aren't Chaw at the summer camp with Kachan and King?" he inquired. In a melancholy tone, she stated, "I got a cold right as I was supposed to go. I'm over it, but I can't go to that camp now." He sat down and patted the floor beside him, saying, "Oh, that sucks," he said. "Want to talk about it?" "No, Why aren't you at the camp? Heroes are your favorite thing in the world. The young lady responded. My mom lost my permission slip a week before it was time to go. Can you believe it? And I heard All Might was supposed to be visiting it too, the child grumbled. Ah, whimpered Ochako. She sighed, well, at least we have each other. Yeah, so, you want to play a new game I came up with? Izuku responded. In response, his friend said, sure, what's it called? He pointed to the girl's bubble milk tea and said, it's called, The Bandit in the Fountain of Youth. I play the role of the bandit trying to steal the fountain. And you play the role of the holy woman guarding it, he continued. Ochako smiled and said, and my tea is supposed to be the fountain? Izuku chirped, yep. The girl said, now just get ready and we can start. He climbed back up the gym while singing the same song, but his face was once more bewildered when he saw Uraraka. He looked down at her and said, hey little girl, what are you doing here? You lost. Their heights differed by about an inch. She said angrily, little girl? I'll have you know I'm the guardian of the fountain, and surprisingly well. He said, really? Huh. She nodded as she touched him, and her quirk came to life, causing him to swiftly float off into the distance before falling into a nearby sandbox. Yes, and I'm protecting the fountain from people like you. The boy was relieved to land on the sand after yelling, oh shish, as he fell. The girl laughed as she sat down before saying, well, that's done. Izuku began climbing again, singing, just a drop on your tongue whoa, before he was knocked off again, this time by a kick to the face. He was fortunate to be caught on a rock on the climbing wall. What the, does he possess some sort of luck-based quirk? Ochako pondered absently. Although she was relieved that her friend was not gravely injured, she couldn't help but believe that given what she had just witnessed. Darn it, will you just stop? Izuku asked, scaling the precipice. You're the one who needs to stop around here. How are you even alive right now? No human can survive a fall from this height, she replied with disbelief. The boy with the green hair shrugged and said, just lucky, I guess. But now I think it's about time that I got serious, he continued. Then he drew a pair of tiny toy nunchucks and began to whip them around until they glowed pink. Uraraka couldn't stop him as he whipped it in the direction of the cup, taking it from behind her and putting it in his hand with a pink energy whip. Izuku shrugged after taking a whiff of the cup. Not bad. Doesn't smell like soda though, but I guess it'll do. He sighed. He laughed as he was ready to have a drink, saying, well, bottoms up. And when I say here's to my health, I mean it. Uraraka screamed, no, as she sprinted to get him to float once more and grab the cup before it hit the floor. Izuku yelled angrily, oh come on, but it was obvious he was enjoying himself. I'm through with trying to make you people understand, she yelled. But if you take away the fountain everything here will wither and die. So give up your quest and leave this place now, she said. The brunette was taken aback by the boy's casual shrug, which said, all right, fine. Uncertain whether she heard correctly, Ochako questioned, what? This is enjoyable, happily, she thought. Honest. He chuckled in a friendly manner. Good, he added in his mind, she's enjoying the game. Who are you, anyway? She inquired, disappointing him. He rolled his shoulder and said, can't ya tell? I'm a bandit, but Bandit Izuku is my handle around here. What about you? What's your name? She introduced herself, saying, oh, I'm Ochako, guardian of the fountain. End of flashback. As he deflected a blow from the enormous teddy bear, Izuku skidded to a stop, then began thrashing his staff in an attempt to raise it again. King promoted the status of the boy's arm cut, saying, so you guys just played a role-playing game that entire time. Kinda sounds cliché to me, Izuku. A little too perfect. He retorted as he delivered another punch that caught Guardian's tight hold, saying, URG. We didn't just that, I also showed her my favorite hero soda box trading card collection. She seemed to like it, and I even let her try one of my favorites. Hey, it was great. Rewind. Uraraka was grinning as she examined Izuku's collection while she waited for him to return to the jungle gym. Unaware that he had followed her, she thought to herself, I don't know why, but I wouldn't mind Izuku taking me away like he was going to do with that tea. I bet it would have been nice. He was eating some gummy candy he had brought with him when he asked, huh? Should I do that too, then? Surprised, Ochako turned to look at him. She said sheepishly, oh, sorry, Izuku, didn't hear you coming. Before smiling, he shrugged and said, it's okay. The girl blushed as he teased, so you wanted me to steal you away huh? He laughed when she stammered, no, that's not. and then turned away. He held out his pinky finger and said, "Well, I'll tell you what, when we get older and start training together to become heroes, I'll do just that and take you as my own. How's that?" She put her finger to his and said, "Promise." As they shook on it, he smiled reassuringly and said, "Promise." End of flashback. The immortal screamed, "I made a promise to her that I would make her mine, and I intend to keep it." As he attempted to strike Guardian but was quickly restrained by it. King waved his hand and floated before him. Izuku began to slowly turn to stone as a golden two-pronged spear pierced his chest from behind, and Tata gave the order, Form 5, Fossilization. Observation deck. Iida cried out in alarm, "What the? He's turning Midoriya to stone." Mina Ishido, a pink-skinned girl with tiny bug-like horns, added, "Well, is anyone going to comment on how romantic Uraraka and Midoriya's story is? I mean, I know he didn't say much about it, but from what I heard it sounded really romantic." As the procedure was finished, Kaminari exclaimed in terror, "It is cute, but we should be focusing on the fact that Midoriya is turning to stone. Instead. Somewhere else." At the moment, the girl threw an oil drum at the explosion boy, who was attempting to dodge it while Uraraka and Bakugo were present. Because of his mobility, he had been holding her on the ropes for a few minutes, but his typical fighting style was completely abandoned as soon as she had some weapons. His grenade gauntlets were glowing red as he skidded to a stop. He got up, pointed his gauntlet at her, and smiled gleefully, saying, "I'm all loaded up." She raised an eyebrow and said, "What are you doing?" He smiled as he pulled something on the gauntlet back. "I dunno if you still remember how my quirk explosion works, but my sweat glands produce a type of sweat that's like nitroglycerin which I can blow up. So imagine what I can do if I have a lot of it." As a pin emerged from the side of his gauntlet, he continued, "These babies aren't just for show, they've been storing my sweat for one massive blast." Oh boy, Ochako swallowed, fully aware of how her old friend's peculiarity operates. With a shudder, he asked, "Just promise me that you'll dodge. If something bad happens to you, Izuku's gonna wring my neck." All Might shouted through the speakers, "Young Bakugo, stop. You'll kill her." Instead, the blonde exclaimed, "Oh, she'll be fine as long as she dodges." As he pulled the pin, sending a huge blast in Ochako's direction and causing a huge hole to blow in the building's side, shaking the area around it. With Tata, the building shook as the floating boy finished turning Izuku to stone. There would be hell to pay if Bakugo had gone too far with his sister, and he sincerely hoped that he hadn't. This is a fitting fate for you, Izuku. Not able to die, or find peace. Just the perfect punishment for your failure. Tata said. He now realized that although Izuku was not the cause of the accident, Ochako's death was the consequence of his failure. He began floating away to assist Bakugo as he transformed Guardian back into its spear form. Izuku knew exactly what was happening in his mind, but he was immobile. But just when he thought there was no hope, he saw something. He saw 8 faces with glowing yellow eyes staring at him in a haze of nebula-like colors. And without even doing it, he could feel the force of one for all pulsing through his body as they gazed at him, and crack, break. The surrounding stone casing broke like glass. In utter shock, Tata turned and gazed at the now free Izuku. He asked, "What? How did you get out of the fossilization?" As Izuku watched his hand, the fox turned to him and said, "I don't know, and I don't care." He rushed forward after saying, "Now come on, Fairy King Tata. We're ending this now. It's time we patch things up the hard way." Observation deck. Iida exhaled a sigh of relief. He got away. Thank God. Kaminari begged, "Please tell me Tata is getting an earful for turning him to stone." "Oh, he'll get more than that," All Might stated gravely. He was not going to tolerate this kind of behavior. Alongside Tata and Izuku, who was back with the 2 boys, was able to seize Chastiful and spin on it, kicking Tata into a nearby wall. Now that he had a plan, Uraraka was exactly where he needed her. He spoke into his earpiece, "Uraraka, are you okay?" After taking several deep breaths, she answered, "I'm fine, even if Bakugo sent a huge explosion at me." "He what?" The boy spat out, his teeth grinding. She attempted to appease him by saying, "Whoa, easy, you can slug him later," without even denying that Izuku would later give Bakugo a black eye. She said, "What do you need me to do?" As Tata reshaped his spear into its numerous miniature versions, he urged her to get to the pillar in the right-hand corner and hang on. "I'm about to blow the roof off this joint." It was the self-proclaimed Fairy King who asked, "What the hell are you planning?" As he began to channel one for all through his arm, the scarred boy smiled and said, "Simple, grisly sin of sloth, I'm about to raise the rooftop off this ice cube stand." King shouted, "Not if I have anything to say about it." As he charged at him, the two boys ready to attack with full force. Observation deck, Kirishima exclaimed, "Oh man, they're gonna kill each other." As the two charged, Mina went on, "Shouldn't you stop them?" Kaminari added, "Yeah, this is seriously going sideways real fast." "I would, but young Midoriya can take the punishment, and I can already tell that he'll hold back for young Tada's sake." The peace symbol said. With Izuku and Tada, the green-haired boy changed from a right hook to an uppercut just before the two clashed. He shouted, "Uraraka, now!" and punched the ceiling above with all of his strength, causing an air blast that destroyed the roof and every other level. The blonde exploder was confused when the gravity-controlling girl grabbed onto the pillar she was instructed to grab with Bakugo and Uraraka. The airwave then blasted through the roof, creating a lot of debris, which Ochako used as ammunition. She cheered, "All right, special move, the Comet Home Run," as she hit a pillar to send the debris in Bakugo's direction. Then, using her quirk, she managed to float over the gap and onto the dummy weapon while Bakugo was preoccupied. She sang, "Got it." "Fuck," the blonde exclaimed as stones continued to fall on his head. King stared at Izuku in disbelief as he was down with the two boys and had Chastiful in his chest at the moment. "I told you, King, now that she's back, I'm not letting Ochako go. Never again, so if that means I gotta trust her to get things done, that's what I'm gonna do," he said as he vomited. King attempted to say, "You," but was unsuccessful. Through the speakers, All Might exclaimed, "The hero team we ends." Later, All Might began discussing the exercise as everyone reassembled in the observation room. The man informed them that Tada was the bottle's MVP, regardless of the outcome. "How, exactly?" inquired Mina. "Shouldn't it have been one of the heroes?" replied Sue. Valid question. Why didn't I choose one of them? Who has a guess?" the hero responded. Momo interrupted to say, "I can," and then proceeded to explain the fight in great detail. As you stated before, Bakugo's move against Uraraka was a poor move, and similarly Midoriya's strategy was also poorly thought out. And Uraraka's last move was extremely risky. Had this been real, she would not have used such an imprecise move. Tada on the other hand spent his time trying to capture Midoriya and distract him from getting to his partner and nearly succeeded in doing so. Even if his judgment was compromised by a grudge against Midoriya, she clarified. "Wow, the big hero thought, she's definitely got quite the analytical eye." PFT. Izuku and Bakugo both jeered angrily, but the green-haired boy realized that her remarks were a serious insult to his friend's pride and put his arm around his shoulder to boost his spirits. "Anyway, with that out of the way, let's proceed to the next battle simulation," the man replied. Somewhere else, the tentacled boy made several ears and a mouth on two of the other students, Mezzo Shoji and Shoto Todoroki, as they entered their building. "They're on the second and third floors. The invisible one is definitely barefoot," he stated to Todoroki. The two-toned boy said, "Go outside for your own safety." As he abruptly began freezing the entire building, he added, "Our opponents may plan to fight a defensive battle, but we've already won." Observation space. Izuku exclaimed, what the? Are you kidding me?" as everyone realized what was happening. Tada trailed off, "I want to call that ridiculous, boo it." Sue observed, "He did get in on recommendations. He incapacitated his opponents without endangering his teammate." Take note, students. They were told by All Might. Returning with Shoji and Shoto. When Shoto entered the room where Ojiro and Hagakure were, she discovered that the invisible girl had no shoes, or any clothing, for that matter, and that her feet were stuck. She grumbled, "This sucks." Shoto told them, "It's not your fault, we're just playing on different levels." He then indicated that he had won by placing his left hand on the weapon. "The hero team wins," exclaimed All Might. Hagakure then began to hop on different feet as Shoto melted the ice. She cringed, "Yikes, hot hot hot, damn." Ojiro swore in shock. Everyone in the observation deck, especially Bakugo, was in complete awe of how strong everyone was at this school and that he was no longer the strongest. This was just another blow to his ego, and he was on the verge of hyperventilating. Izuku took hold of his friend's shoulders and said, "Easy, Kachan. Ua is full of the best, remember." Just because one guy seems strong doesn't mean he's better than you at everything. Stay calm, you'll be fine, he assured his companion. Bakugo tried, with little success, to calm his nerves by thinking, right. After that, the matches continued in quick succession, and everyone left for their afternoon classes. Izuku knew that All Might's hasty departure was due to his time constraint. Later, Izuku then ran into Tata once more while he was getting a soda from the school's drink machine. He began to open his drink and said, "Oh, hey King." The floating pillow lounger finally said, "You never did finish the story you told in the simulation." "What's to tell? I promised Ochako that I'd make her mine one day, and then a couple weeks later the accident happened and I failed to save her." He took a sip of his beverage. "Honestly, I would have been dead too if my quirk hadn't awakened." He sighed. "Awakened?" inquired the Fairy King. "Yep, my quirk was originally known as Snatch, my power-sapping ability. It wasn't until I nearly died that it evolved awakened, into what we know today. I didn't plan on it, either. I didn't even know how to plan for stuff like that." The immortal murmured. Quietly, he added, "I even got survivor's guilt afterwards." The boy said, "Oh. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been so closed-minded. It wasn't fair to you." Izuku's tone became solemn at this point. "Water under the bridge, now. I didn't have any opportunities until today to give you the story from my side. Still, we need to figure out who brought Ochako back. If it was somehow a villain, then we have a lot of work to do to figure out who," he said. As they began to return to class, Tata nodded, "Right." However, as soon as they did, the rest of the class rushed over. One by one, they began to introduce themselves. "Hey, I'm Eijiro Kirishima. It's nice to meet Shaw. I gotta say guys, your fight was super manly," said Kirishima. Siro went on, "Hey, I'm Honta Siro." Before Mina interrupted, Aoyama stated, "More importantly, I'm Yuga Aoyama. I'm Mina Ishido, and I just gotta say your story about you and Uraraka was really romantic," she exclaimed. Suyu introduced himself as Suyu Asui, "But please, call me Su." He heard the heavy-set boy say, "Hey, I'm Sato." Tata hid behind his pillow and floated in front of the group, saying, Hi." With a nervous laugh. Izuku greeted them casually, "Hey, gang. What's up?" But then he noticed something strange. He inquired, "Where's Kachan?" Kaminari and Uraraka approached them, and Kaminari shrugged, "Oh, he left earlier, not sure where he went though." He went in search of his friend and exclaimed, "Shit, I better go find him. See you guys later." Somewhere else, Izuku chose to call out to Bakugo as he was leaving when he ran outside. He called out, "Hey, Kachan. Wait up," as the blonde turned back to face him. "Hey, what's wrong man? You left without telling me," he continued. "You saw all those fights, especially that two-faced guy. How am I supposed to compete with someone like that?" he barked. "Kachan, listen to yourself. You're being too hard on yourself. You know you're talented, I know you're talented, so why don't you just keep proving it?" His companion replied. "That's easy for you to say. You got crazy strong over the past 10 months. I mean seriously, how did you even manage that?" The brunette exploded. Bakugo hesitated as the immortal answered, "By cleaning a beach." What was his blank question? At the thought of that incident, he cried out, "It's true. Seriously, you should have seen how much garbage there was. Hell, there was even a wrecked truck, for fuck's sake." Bakugo asked, "You can't be serious." "That's it." "Well, not all of it, but, well, I also got a power-boosting power from someone else recently. I can't say who I got it from or what it is, but I want you to know that I'm not trying to hide anything from you. And what little I do hide is for your own safety." The immortal replied. Eyes narrowing, the exploder said, "Why? Having trouble controlling it or something?" The boy shrugged and nervously scratched his neck, saying, "Sorta. It's hard to explain." Regardless, he held out his fist to his friend and said, "But I just want you to know that if you ever need someone to take your frustrations out on, well, you know where I am." After gazing at his fist, Bakugo grinned and slammed it against his own. "Gotcha," he added with a laugh. All Might, his pupils both sweating and his protege facepalming at his mentor's untimely arrival, abruptly burst onto the scene, interrupting this moment of consoling bromance. Before he noticed the atmosphere, the mountain of muscle yelled, "Young Bakugo." While clinging to the boy's shoulders, a little embarrassed, he inquired, Did I come at a bad time? With his hand still on his face, his protege informed him, ya kinda did, yeah. Bakugo began to leave, saying, there's nothing to talk about All Might, I'm over it. He said, just make sure you're ready for class tomorrow. And waved halfway back. All Might cleared his throat and gave an ungainly nod. His successor shrugged when he said, so, young Midoriya, what were you and young Bakugo talking about when I arrived so heroically? Nothing too serious, just helping get his act together. He responded. One hero shrugged and said, oh, okay, then. So far, the day has gone well, with a lot of problems being neatly fixed. Somewhere else, a man with hands all over his body was reading the paper in a bar in a seedy area of town. He said to one of his friends, hey. He made the paper deteriorate in his hands and asked, what do you think would happen to the world if the symbol of peace was killed by the villains? Unknown bar. A man with pale blue hair, thin body, and sickly, chapped skin was sitting at the bar in a dilapidated bar in Japan. Behind the bar, a yellow-eyed man who appeared to be composed of purple and black smoke was cleaning a glass. Back behind the bar, the man asked his comrade, Kurogiri, any word from our new member yet? Kurogiri nodded as he put away the glass he was cleaning and said, of course Tamura Shigaraki, I could teleport her here to speak with you face to face if you wish. Then he nodded and said, very well. Do it. Then Kurogiri opened a portal with his quirk, and a figure emerged. The girl was rather short, barely taller than Sue at 5 feet 2 inches. Her curvy figure was well accentuated by a heart-shaped ass, C-cup rack, and wide hips. Her eyes were a reddish purple that nearly blended in with her pupils, and she had rather long lilac hair. The woman's outfit was also rather peculiar. She wore purple leather stilettos, arm-length latex gloves, a horned headpiece, and skin-tight purple latex pants that were fastened to a purple lingerie-strapped latex bra. Hey, boys, happy to see me? With an extremely menacing snake-like smile, she asked. Hubby Tamashi, Uriali, aka Soul Plasty is her quirk, which allows her to manipulate and even resurrect the souls of others and link herself to them, allowing her to control them like puppets or unintentionally act as second sets of eyes and ears. Killing her or the person she is connected to is the only way to sever the connection. And a person will die within a few days if they haven't recovered enough life force after the connection is severed, Mike declared. Yes, Uriali, we are. I want to talk to you. Tamura gave a nod. Oh, how about, she inquired. You informed us that your peculiarity has allowed you to become inseparable from UA students' souls, enabling you to see through their eyes and hear through their ears. Am I right? Kurogiri inquired. Yes, she has proven to be a great source of amusement, and it has been that way for a while now. Uriali nodded. So, how about using this connection to let us know where All Might will be today? Tamura proposed. Obviously, after 10 minutes, the soul bender opened her eyes and said, good news, I know exactly where they'll be, and at what time. Give me a moment, she said. Tamura turned to Kurogiri and said, excellent. Round up the rest of our friends, we're going to pay UA a little visit. Somewhere else, UA High, a few minutes before. Izuku was on his way to school and was feeling pretty positive, but he was unhappy that the gates of UA, and thus him, were crowded with reporters. Young man, pardon me, could you describe the educational experience under All Might? A reporter shoved her microphone in his face and asked. He swatted the woman's microphone away, saying, not now, I gotta get to class. He wasn't being rude, but they were blocking his path. Unfortunately, the press failed to pick up on the hint and attempted to interview the other students, with Tata going into a lengthy monologue and Uraraka simply calling him muscular. As he floated to school on Chastiful's pillow form, King yawned and shrugged, saying, he's just like any teacher really, he can be super boring sometimes. One of the other reporters said, ya know, that's probably about as good as we're gonna get on this topic. Fortunately for the students, Aizawa managed to stop them before the school barrier was raised, allowing everyone to attend class. However, as Ochako sat down, she felt her eyes become itchy, so she rubbed them. What's the matter? Are your eyes itching? Observing her rubbing her eyes, Izuku inquired. Yes, it does occasionally come to me. No big deal. She shrugged as the itch subsided, but she was unaware that Uriali was the cause of it, a sign that she was observing her. Well, all right, the immortal shrugged, not worried about that, itchy eyes were not a big deal. Slow down, everybody, We have a big event planned for today that will determine your future, Aizawa informed them. Is this just another quirk test? Everyone worriedly wondered. Today, you'll be choosing a class representative, he said. Everyone was relieved to think, oh, just normal school stuff. However, this was quickly followed by a clamor from everyone expressing their desire to serve as the representative without Izuku and King, who simply yawned and turned away with bored expressions. But this was cut short when Iida got up and called out to everyone, saying, please, everyone, keep quiet. We can't approach this carelessly. In my opinion, we ought to resolve this through a democratic process. He informed them, that way we'll know for sure who should represent us. How you kids do it doesn't matter to me. Aizawa zipped up his sleeping bag and then fell to the ground, snoring, saying, just make a decision before my nap is over. How will we know who to trust when we've only known one another for a few days? Sue asked. Indeed, who's to say that people won't cast their own ballots? Sato went on. Well, if one of us gets more than one vote is more than qualified, replied Iida. Izuku thought, probably not me, then. Well, who gives a damn? King shrugged. Izuku and Momo received the most votes at the end of the lengthy vote, which lasted for several minutes. Ironically, Iida trailed closely behind Momo. Izuku seemed slightly put off by this development. He did not sign up for this. After the election was done, Aizawa continued class. I went over your combat training videos and I'd like to say that I'm pleased with the results. But I do have a few things to say, he said, turning to face Bakugo and King. I'll start with you two first, Bakugo and Tada. Bakugo, I know your team lost, but you're talented. Do better, then, and stop pouting like a kid. According to the blonde, yeah, alright. As for you, Tada, Aizawa started before taking a deep breath. What the hell were you thinking? He yelled, causing everyone to jump in surprise at the sudden yelling. What? The boy stammered in shock. I get that you had heard conflicting reports, but turning a fellow student to stone during a training exercise. Exclamation mark. If Midoriya hadn't broken free, you'd be expelled for murder. After taking a moment to calm himself, the erasure hero continued, that being said, your special move did prove to be a good capturing move. Normally, he's more composed than this, but what he had heard really enraged him to no end. Don't forget to have a way to undo it. You do realize that you should keep your personal problems with other students out of your school life. Quote. The boy nodded, shivering a little from the recent chewing out. Right. Later, everyone was eating in the cafeteria, which was prepared by one of the world's greatest chefs, Lunch Rush, the cooking hero. Izuku received his favorite dish, katsudon, which was a panko fried pork cutlet and noodle dish. Iida received his favorite red curry and rice. Bakugo received his favorite spicy curry, and King, finally, received a bowl of pork ramen. Hey King, quick question, you guys still got that tosa of yours? I believe his name was Oslo. As he was eating, Izuku inquired, and Ochako laughed when the dog was brought up. Yes, we do, he's really grown into a big fella, she replied. Yeah, though he's been a real nuisance ever since he developed a quirk, King sighed. This caught their attention. It wasn't unheard of for animals to develop quirks. In fact, the principal, Nezu, was an animal who has a quirk that gives him super intelligence. However, it was still very uncommon. He developed a quirk, Bakugo asked in intrigue. Yeah, he can teleport to anywhere a person he sees as his owner is and can teleport anything he swallows to another place. He's done that to my hairbrush a lot. Uraraka sighed. Izuku couldn't help but snort. He swallows your hairbrush. I'm sorry. How many have you had to replace over the years? His childhood sweetheart merely glared at him as he asked, struggling to control his laughter. She threatened, I will send you up to low orbit. The immortal immediately clammed up. Shutting up. He gave a little squeak. Iida couldn't help but chuckle at what was being said while Bakugo rolled his eyes. Anyway, sorry you couldn't be the class rep, Iida, I know you really wanted to be it. The girl said in a comforting manner. I was kinda surprised, I mean you do kinda look and act the part. As he ate his noodles, Tada said, you're just saying that because of his glasses. Wanting to be in a position and actually being qualified for it are two different things. That's what I've learned from working with my family at the Iida Hero Agency, the boy with the bespectacled eyes said. Does that mean you're rich? The girl who controlled gravity asked with excitement, and everyone grimaced except for Iida, who stiffened. Wow, not beating around the bush, are you, pink cheeks? Bakugo questioned. I was afraid everyone would treat me differently if they knew about my family. Iida sighed. Everyone started staring at him for an explanation. The Iida family has been heroes for generations, it's sort of like a family business. To give you an example, are any of you familiar with the turbo hero, Ingenium? He questioned. Yes, I am. He's got around 65 sidekicks working at his agency and he's super popular. The green-haired boy nodded. He's my elder brother, the turbo boy said proudly. Whoa, nice. Ha, nice. They all said in surprise. Ingenium is an unmatched commander who honors the hero code. As the second eldest Iida son, I strive to be just like him. He told them, though I'm still not ready for a leadership role. He added before looking at Izuku. However, I think you'd be a good leader. You saw that the judges of the exams were looking for something more. A good leader needs that kind of insight. I'm not sure I really qualified you to past occurrences. The immortal replied vaguely with a sigh. Bakugo instantly knew what he was talking about. Stop it, you're better than that. The blonde told him. Right at that moment though, the school alarms went off, causing everyone to almost jump out of fear. Warning, warning, a level 3 breach is underway. Please be calm and orderly as you make your way to the exits. An automated voice instructed. What's a level 3 breach? Iida asked a third year next to him. It means that someone got through the barrier, which hasn't happened in my 3 years being here. The boy told them before everyone started panicking and forming a sea of people trying to get out the door, pressing Iida against the window. It's the press, he said in exasperation upon noticing the media equipment in the distance. Turning back he saw Kirishima and Kaminari being swept away by the sea of people. Deciding to try and stop this mass panic he turned and saw Uraraka. Uraraka, he called to her, reaching out his hand. Touch my hand, make me float, he told her. Okay, she called back. She struggled to touch his hand, and failed after the first one, but got it after the second one, causing the bespectacled runner to float. Iida then quickly pulled up his pants legs and then used his quirk to blast towards the exit sign and landed there. Everyone, calm down, it's just the media outside, he shouted as he caught their attention. Come on, we're UA students, we need to show that we're the best of the best by staying calm and collected. He told all the students. Everyone slowly started to calm down and Class 1A all let out a sigh of relief. He really saved them this time. Later, so, yeah, guys. Izuku scratched the back of his neck and shrugged, saying, I'm sorry, but I'm just not sure that being the class representative is for me. So I've decided to go ahead and give the job to Iida. He's definitely more qualified than I am, especially after what happened at lunch. He added. Tenya seemed taken aback by this, but composed himself as he stood up. In response, he received some comforting remarks. If you think I am qualified, then I will perform the job of class representative to the best of my ability. Yano, if Midoriya says that he's good enough for the job, then I'm good. Kirishima nodded. Plus he totally manned up back there, that's something I can definitely get behind. Sato laughed and added, same here. Plus, he kinda looked like the guy on the exit sign. Kaminari nodded and said, emergency exit Iida, yeah I can get behind that. I don't care who the representative is, just get it over with already. Aizawa snapped before getting up. Anyway, today we're going to be doing something different for your hero training. What sort of instruction are we providing? Kaminari asked. Aizawa then held up a card that said rescue on it. Rescue training. Instead of fighting people this time, you'll be saving them. From accidents, natural disasters, and the like, the man clarified. Ah yeah, now this is more like it. Kirishima grinned and remarked, very heroic work. This is what separates the men from the boys. Quote. Sounds like we're in for a workout. Kaminari added. I'm game. Jiro, a girl with earphone jacks' earlobes shrugged. This'll be fun. Izuku grinned. Somewhere else. In the teacher's lounge, a deflated All Might was sitting on the couch and trying to rest after overexerting himself. He was now unfortunately unable to go to the rescue class with his students. Man, I really screwed up this time, he sighed as he sat back. Aizawa's probably gonna wring my neck after this, then again I could go now, maybe get a few minutes out of my hero form. Yeah, that'll work, he said as he started buffing up, albeit with a bit of pain. Now hold your horses. A kindly voice said as a white bipedal 3 feet 4 inches tall mouse walked in, and he was wearing a business suit. He also had a scar on his right eye. Ah, Principal Nezu, the mountain of muscle exclaimed in surprise. Yes, the one who might be a dog or a mouse or a bear, but really is important that I'm the principal. Nezu chirped as he walked over to All Might. Your fur is looking very glossy and well-groomed today, sir. All Might told him, as it was customary to pay a compliment to one's superiors while at work whenever possible. In Japan at least. Yes, I made sure to make it look this nice. The animal principal nodded. And I see that you haven't changed much over the years. He noted. True, but neither have you, sir. He replied. Yes, that may be true. Though I must say this, with your power now being diminished you cannot do as much hero work as you used to. Nezu gave a nod. Additionally, there is the issue of training one for all successor, so I believe you'd do best to dedicate most of your time to your students anyway. After all, they deserve it. All Might nodded and said, that they do. Nezu just poured a glass of hot green tea for them. He beckoned before observing steam emanating from his employee's body. Now while we're on the topic, why don't we start by discussing your successor and how we can potentially help him in his development as a hero and a well-rounded person overall, shall we? He said. The principal said, oh, you're steaming, that's not good. All Might mumbled as he deflated once more. Shit. Somewhere else. They were talking about all of the students' peculiarities on the bus when Kirishima said he wished he had a more ostentatious one, but Fox Sin said he was perfectly fine. You know, I gotta admit, Midoriya, don't you ever get tired of constantly coming back to life over and over again? Replied Kaminari. I did at first, but after a while I just kinda stopped being tired of it and got used to it. Dunno how else to say it. He laughed. Sue turned to face Izuku and remarked, well, since we're pointing out the obvious, there's something I wanted to say. About you actually. He said, oh yeah. What's that, Asui? I told you to call me Sue. She corrected before continuing. I couldn't help but notice how similar your quirk is to All Might's. The frog girl noted, causing Izuku to sweat bullets on the inside. No. Even if he can recover from it, his quirk still damages his body whenever he uses it. There's no way it's similar to All Might's. Kirishima told her, causing the immortal to silently let out a relieved sigh. Yeah, but seriously, with a power like yours, you, Bakugo and Todoroki are gonna be great pros, said Kaminari. Assuming they can get past Izuku's masochism fetish, King said, rolling his eyes, chastityful in its pillow form behind his head. That boy shrugged and said, not my fault, I love pain. I don't really see Bakugo becoming very popular with his behavior, though. Sue commented, drawing said boy's ire. What? Say that again and I'll kick your ass. He yelled at her. The frog girl pointed at him and said, you see. The blonde exploder was further set off when Kaminari nodded, saying, you know, I can actually see your point. Besides, we've basically only known him for a few days, so it's kinda telling that we know his personality is flaming crap mixed with garbage. He added, keep talking and I'll make you regret choosing the hero course. The Pomeranian blonde exclaimed in indignation and anger. Holy crap, Kachan is getting teased. I never imagined that day would come. Izuku laughed in his head. While covering her mouth, Momo remarked, this is such a disgusting conversation. Later, a person in an astronaut costume greeted the students when they reached their destination. Uraraka walked beside him, a huge, excited smile on her face, and Izuku smiled and exclaimed, Space Hero 13, as I live and breath. Alright, 13 is my favorite hero. She smiled happily. Hello everyone, I'm here to help train you to do rescues today. And to do that we'll be working in this building here. She told them, gesturing to the building. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. But you can call it, the USJ. She added. Like Universal Studios Japan, everyone pondered. Aizawa asked, where's All Might? I thought he was supposed to be here. What, did he decide to do an interview instead? He asked. He accidentally used up all his power this morning. He's currently resting. 13 replied quietly. That man is the height of irresponsibility. Aizawa sighed in irritation. Come kids, let's go. As they entered the USJ, 13 faced them. Before we begin, I have 2 things to say, or maybe 3, no actually 4, or 5, or, she began to talk. Aizawa yelled, get on with it. Nodding, she said, right. As you all know, I have a very powerful quirk, it's called Black Hole. The space hero explained. Yeah, you've used it to save a lot of people. Izuku said while Ochako nodded giddily. Yes I have, but if I'm not careful, I could accidentally kill someone with it. She added, it's the same with many of your quirks, you could kill someone with them if you make a wrong move. Yeah, that's true. King nodded as he lounged on his pillow. My quirk definitely fits that description. So does mine. Izuku nodded. I can snatch physical objects, even manifestations from quirks, so if I wanted to I could steal people's organs. That's a little disturbing. 13 commented with a shiver. How do you think I feel? I grew up with this guy. Bakugo commented in agreement. Oi, the immortal exclaimed indignantly. Regardless, today we'll be teaching you how to use your powers to help rather than harm. After all, that's what being a hero is all about. The space hero told them, right before the lights and other electric-powered devices started to fail. Just about everyone in the class got out in confusion. Tamura Shigaraki led the group of people who began to emerge from the enormous black and purple haze that had then formed. What in the name of? Izuku asked. What's going on? Are we starting already? Kirishima wondered. Get back, Aizawa ordered, making them do so. This is real, those are actual villains. He told them as he put on his goggles. Izuku simply cracked his knuckles and licked his long canines while everyone else appeared concerned. The Fox Sin smiled and said, perfect, now is just the time I need to try out a new special move. As he rushed past Aizawa before he could be stopped, he claimed, Kachan knows about this one's prototype, Phantom Hunt. But the one I wanna try, affects up to 30 people at once. And jumped towards the villains while holding out his arms. He yelled, snatch special move. Zero sign, as he took away every one of their senses. Since the villains could no longer see him, everything around him became negative. Following this, he went to work and began eliminating villains one by one. Wanting to chastise him for this, Aizawa chose to join in and started rendering villains helpless as he eliminated their peculiarities. Mina exclaimed, whoa! How is he not getting seen by them? As Bakugo watched the villains be defeated, he remarked, he stole their perception, and now he's taking advantage of that. Sato said, sucks to be them, in that case. However, Kurogiri was the mist villain who materialized behind them as they were watching. Izuku had just finished throttling a man with a crowbar and an eye patch when he noticed Kurogiri encircling all of his friends and Uraraka encircled by one of the smoke villain's tendrils. This made him growl fiercely, and without thinking, he jerked his hands in opposing directions, breaking the villain's neck before he fled back in their direction. I'll kill you, he screamed homicidally at Kurogiri. The villain said, not likely, as he transported everyone to various locations. It wasn't until he was mid-water that Izuku realized what was going on. Before entering the water, he exclaimed, oh shit, the leather of my costume is going to get soaked. With a frustrated expression on his face, he started swimming for the surface right away. A shark-headed villain was swimming toward him when he heard water moving. He opened his mouth to bite him, but a familiar frog girl kicked him instead. Nothing personal, kid, just gotta kill All Might, he cried. Izuku watched in astonishment. Sue, with wide eyes, he pondered. Hey, Midoriya, she exclaimed as she used her tongue to grab him and drag him onto the boat, where King was also waiting. Looking at the water, the floating boy asked, hey Izuku. You alright? His eyes widened, and he sighed, I'll live, out loud. He stood up and exclaimed, wait, Ochako. I have to get back to her, she's in danger. When Sue pointed to the water and saw the dozens of aquatic villains swimming for their boat, she exclaimed, look. We have bigger problems right now. King moaned, oh now that's just great. The immortal remarked, okay, this just doesn't make any sense. These guys probably did a lot of planning before they came here since the first thing they did was split us up, but why would they send you here, Sue? He was puzzled. King hypothesized, perhaps they are unaware of our peculiarities. Sue looked at the fire zone and realized, hey, yeah. If they knew about my quirk, they would have sent me to that fire zone over there instead of here. Izuku sat down and said, then we can use that to our advantage. Speaking of which, let's talk quirks. Sue, you go first. He asked. She listed off her abilities, making the two boys uncomfortable. Oh, well, I can jump really high and far, stick to just about any surface, and stretch my tongue out to about 20 meters. I also have camouflage, can secrete a toxic mucus, and cough up my stomach so I can clean it. Those last two won't be all that helpful in this situation, though. Ignore them, she continued. Izuku nodded and said, okay, King, you're next. My quirk allows me to control plant life, and change and manipulate things at a molecular level. I can make small wounds even worse, benign growths into tumors, and even turn water into thin air if I want. It's how I can change my spear's shape. The kid clarified. I'm not entirely sure how I'd fit in this situation though, at the moment. Then Izuku began to ponder. King has the ability to alter and modify things at the molecular level, and Su's peculiarity might enable us to quickly flee. Perhaps that's all, he pondered, formulating a strategy. King, think you can create a sticky substance that can last for a day even in water? He inquired. The Grizzly Sin nodded. Maybe. What are you planning exactly? Before turning to the trio's girl, he explained, if I can create a big enough distortion in the water, it will make all the villains come toward it. That'll be when the solution comes in. Su, can I count on you to get me out of Dodge? I'll be in the air as I do this, he asked. The frog girl nodded and said, yep. That won't be a problem. Before the boat began to sink, a villain struck it with his quirk, causing it to tremble abruptly. Izuku commanded, it's now or never, guys. Get ready, you two. Before leaping into the air, he needed to recall his performance in the quirk test as he plummeted toward the water. Simply maintain the mental picture of your brain not blowing up in the microwave. As though he were going to flick something, he thought as he focused one for all into his finger. He flicked the air, launching a powerful concussive blast into the water, dislodging it and pulling astonished villains towards it. Surprise, bitches. Delaware smash, he cried. As he retrieved a few pieces of sappy tree bark from a bag he carried, King exclaimed, here we go. Forest sap ball tree. He collected all the sap into a few tiny, sticky, crystal orbs and hurled them at the villains, causing them to become stuck to one another in a cluster as the water swept them into the air. King raised his arms as though he had scored a field goal and exclaimed, "And it's good." As he landed on his floating pillow, Su laughed a little at his antics before she leapt into the air and grabbed Izuku with her tongue mid-drop while Tata flew behind her. Together, the three of them left the shipwreck zone and a number of villains in a difficult situation. However, Uraili had Uraraka clutched to her as they worked with the other students, her jaw loosening to reveal a long, snake-like tongue. The villain hissed at her and licked her cheek, saying, "You did a good job acting as my eyes, my little spy. But I'm afraid you've served your purpose, so there's no need to have you around anymore. Any last words before I devour you?" Ochako chose to remain silent and give the villain behind her a vile glare while hoping that Izuku would come to her rescue. "Please hurry, Izuku," she pondered. Izuku, Su, and King began to move toward the shore as they were gradually making their way out of the shipwreck area. "That sap is super concentrated, so those villains aren't going anywhere," the kid replied. Izuku jokes, making his friends laugh. "Good. Maybe they can take a bath to get rid of that stench of defeat they've got now." Suyu said, "Hey, good one." King told them, "But we should try and help the others right now." As they traveled to Aizawa's location, he added, "Something tells me that things are about to get hairy." The immortal nodded and said, "Good idea. Let's start with having a look at Aizawa's situation." They did just that. As the three of them watched their homeroom teacher fend off the villains, they noticed that he appeared to be holding his own, albeit with signs of weariness. As Aizawa charged at him after defeating a number of other villains, Shigaraki remarked, "First it was 20 for seconds, then it was 17, then 14. He shouted, "Final boss," and hurled his scarf at the man. Suppressing his quirk, he managed to wrap it around him and pulled him in to throw some punches. But Shigaraki was able to hold on to his elbow before his quirk was reinstated. "It was hard to see with you jumping around like that, but I found your tell. It's your hair, you're having to rest longer. You shouldn't overexert yourself, or else you'll fall apart." Shigaraki laughed. "He ruined my elbow." "How?" Aizawa thought as he separated and defeated a few more villains before gasping for air. Shigaraki turned to face the man and said, "Oh, and by the way, hero, I am not the final boss." Aizawa groaned in agony as the bird-faced brain creature seized him and slammed him to the ground as he was saying this. Izuku, Suyu, and Tata became worried and alarmed as a result. Somewhere else, using her quirk, the woman was able to see the image of Izuku in Uraraka's mind while she was back with Kurogiri and Uraili. She smirked as she turned to face her Warpgate partner. As she licked Ochako's cheek, she said to him, "Kurogiri, send me and my little spy here to Tamura. I want those she cares about to watch as I kill her." The mist villain said, "Very well." He then sent her to Tamura with Akako, but not before the girl made him float in that direction when 13 diverted his attention. Shoji and Shiro managed to stop him so Iida could get away, but only after 13 was hurt by her own prank. Urieli seized Uraraka and threatened to strangle her for the stunt she had just performed as she materialized next to Shigaraki. "Get me away from this psycho, Izuku." As she gasped for air, she thought. The snake-like villain hissed, "You've done it now, girl. I gave you your life again. Are you forgetting that I can just as easily take it away?" Izuku began to grit his teeth and clench his fists, unable to look away from the scene in front of him without feeling anxious and angry. This bitch is the one who brought her back. He thought angrily, looks like I'm going to have to do something about her. He said to his two friends, "You guys wait here, I've got something I need to do." Sue questioned, "What are you?" As Izuku stole the villain's perceptions around Uraraka using Snatch. With 3 sections staff in hand, he began to move quickly as everything around him turned negative and he was free to move around. "Zero sign," he said. Shigaraki turned to the massive mass of muscle next to him as Zero Sign stopped, but not before he snuck up behind the short villain and grabbed her head, twisting it so that she dropped Ochako and could flee. He commanded, "Nomu, kill that girl." Ochako looked back as the muscular monster charged at her, and she quickly accelerated her pace in an attempt to get away, even using her quirk to temporarily increase her speed and lose weight. When Urieli saw the girl he loved being pursued by the villain, her situation only got worse. Urieli was gasping for air as Izuku choked her. He shouted, "Ochako, no," as he choked Urieli until he passed out. Then, he pulled out his staff and used it to make a snatch whip, which caught Nomu's back and tore out its heart as the boy withdrew, much to the surprise of Shigaraki, who had just noticed him. He was shocked and asked, "What the? How did that happen?" As Ochako continued to run, Nomu paused briefly as the shock of having an organ removed registered in its slow brain. Izuku attempted to rush and stop him, but was also shocked when the beast abruptly regenerated its heart and launched a clawing attack at the two children, seriously wounding them both. Sue and King couldn't do anything but watch helplessly as this was happening, and Kurogiri appeared beside Shigaraki. 2 of their friends were seriously hurt, and their teacher was down. Damn it, what even is this day? Tada swore the way things had gone. But then anger took its place. As Chastiful blasted alongside him in spear form, he screamed, "I lost my sister once, I refuse to lose her again," and charged towards Shigaraki and Kurogiri. A furious, "I'll kill you, you stupid villains," he screamed. Kurogiri laughed as he moved his body into a black hole and said, "You say that like you can do so." But before the boy could be restrained, Bakugo suddenly appeared and threw an explosive punch at the villain, with Kirishima following closely behind. "Bakugo!" Tada exclaimed in shock and relief, then swung a sphere of push knives at Shigaraki, who attempted to touch him and cut his arms in the process. A furious, "Arg, you damn brat," he screamed. The boy said rhetorically, "I saw what you did to my homeroom teacher. Did you really think I'd let you anywhere near me?" Bakugo called out, "Get him, King. Make it where he's shark food," and then turned to face Kurogiri, whom he had pinned. "Don't even think about moving. Do anything and I'll blow you up so badly that they'll be piecing you back together for weeks," he warned with an evil grin. Next to him, Kirishima remarked, "Oh, that doesn't sound very heroic." Now that Tada and Shigaraki were there, the boy was trying to capture Guardian by having him assume a buff form that resembled Nomu's build. Shigaraki also attempted to decompose the enormous 6-armed teddy bear, but he was unsuccessful. He grumbled, "Oh come on. This is cheating. You're a damn hacker." Tada laughed. He shot back, "Look who's talking, ya damn edgelord." The immortal sin of greed, however, was now awakening with Izuku and Ochako after his right upper half was split in 2 and fully healed. His heart stopped instantly upon seeing Uraraka's puncture wound just beneath her left breast. "No, no, no, no. Never again." As he hurried to her and held her in his arms bridal style, he thought in despair. As the girl opened her eyes feebly, he pleaded with her, "Ochako. Ochako, wake up, stay with me." She said feebly, Zuku. Are we safe?" He attempted to reassure her, saying, "Yes, you're safe now, I got you. Just stay with me, okay? You're gonna be fine." As she began to slowly lose consciousness, the zero-gravity girl said, "I feel so tired, Izuku, that promise we made when we were kids, can you tell me it again?" The girl passed out and collapsed in his arms before he could finish. You got it, Ochako. I promise, one day I'm gonna take you, and make you MI. As his despair grew, he said, no, let me finish, damn it. Then it quickly turned to rage as tears streamed down his cheeks, and he screamed in rage at the sky before a wave of black and green energy erupted all around him as one for all swept through his body like a tsunami. As the energy generated gale force winds that threatened to carry everyone away, Shigaraki and Kurogiri stared at Izuku in disbelief. The man with the hand covering his head asked, Kurogiri, what the hell is going on? Standing pinned, the dark mist man cried out, I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. As the explosion dome gradually vanished and Izuku was seen holding Ochako, Bakugo exclaimed, what the? Isn't that where Deku and Uraraka were? Oh no, don't tell me, but Izuku had changed. He was 6 feet 9 inches now, and he was surrounded by green lightning and chakra-like energy that turned black and green. His eyes sclera glowed with a menacing green crackling energy, and his hair was ignited with the same energy and green crackles. Lastly, in addition to being covered in black and green energy, the energy was shaped into fox features like ears and a tail, and he was foaming at the mouth. With a guttural sigh, the now transformed Fox Sin let out his breath, rushed forward, grabbed Su, Tada, and Aizawa, and pulled them away from the fight before the villains could see them. He then put Ochako down with them, turned back to the fight, and charged with a roar of rage. Kurogiri and Shigaraki were unable to see him move at all. Nomu was struck and skidded back with a startled squawk. Kill, kill, kill. Hatred, rage, kill. The boy gave an almost incoherent growl before charging at Nomu and beginning to attack him like a savage. Using his now clawed hands, he slashed at Nomu, causing multiple deep cuts and even tearing into the massive monster's muscles. When Izuku lost his mind, the other students watched in wide-eyed disbelief. What on earth became of him? As Kirishima observed the scene, he cried out. I'm not sure. He's never been this irate in my life. Deku is, after all, a really laid-back guy. Although he experiences depression frequently, he hardly ever cries, and it is even less common to make him angry. However, as Bakugo observed his friend's rage, he questioned, this is completely different. Quote. So, how can we soothe him? Suyu pondered. With perspiration streaming down his brow in concern, the exploder sighed, the best I can come up with is to let it run its course for this case. Ochako, wake up, sis, King said to his sister as he held her. Damn it, I can't demote it with my quirk because it's been too long since she sustained this injury. Before grabbing his weapon, he swore, saying, unless. Chastieful Form 8, Healing Sunflower. He snapped his fingers and called. In an instant, his support weapon transformed into a gigantic sunflower that spread its rays and slowly but surely healed Ochako's wounds. Ochako moaned as she woke up, but she was still a little dazed. Phew, thank goodness. He sighed, but he could gradually feel the task he was doing depleting his stamina. One drawback, this uses most of my stamina so I can only use it once or twice a day, otherwise I pass out. What happened? Weary, she asked. You were hit hard. Her brother answered wearily, I had to use Healing Sunflower to patch you up. Where is Izuku? He was. The girl asked, are you going to tell me something important? She whirled toward the source, startled out of her daze by a roar of rage, but she grabbed her head and moaned. Whoa. When she looked toward the roar, she was shocked to see a creature composed of green and black energy that was attacking 3 villains at once with incredible power and insane ferocity. Headrush, she said, shaking her head clear. Deeeeee. Izuku roared, sending everyone in the vicinity reeling backwards with his shockwave. Quote. Bakugo muttered angrily, that's my catchphrase. Izuku gasped, still foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog. You deprived me of her. I'll kill you if you don't pay. He growled angrily as he attacked the 3 villains with 100% of one for all in a double claw strike. Harlem Smash. As the 2 attacks struck Nomu, who was protecting Shigaraki and Kurogiri, he yelled. This child is insane. How are we going to remove him? The man with the hand covering asked. The villains who paid attention to that detail felt their hearts tighten in fear, but before anything else could be said or done, the entrance door was blasted off its hinges as someone began to walk inside. It was All Might, and even more shockingly, he wasn't smiling. Instead, he was furious. As he tore off his tie, he said, students, don't be afraid because I'm here. His charges let out a sigh of relief as he yelled. Shigaraki, who just missed Izuku's incoming punch and got a close-up look at the boy's immortal regeneration abilities, remarked, "Finally, after all this waiting, the heroic piece of trash shows up. Regeneration, and it's able to overpower my quirk, interesting." With lightning speed, All Might managed to reach the students and remove them from danger. "Students, how are you? Young Uraraka, what happened?" he asked, examining them before noticing the bloodstains on Uraraka's costume. He asked, and Tata responded before the girl could respond. "She was hit hard. I was able to apply a known healing technique, but I'm only able to do it once or twice a day. Otherwise, I get tired," he explained, pointing to the still irate immortal. Her injured state also sent Izuku into a rage. That he was using 100% of One for All without injuring his body, and that he was attacking indiscriminately at everything within reach, made the symbol of peace wince, but it also made him uneasy. The man thought, "I have to stop this, I have to take down the villains and subdue young Midoriya long enough until I can calm him down. For his sake, I must stop him, before he does something he'll regret." One for All was never meant to be used in such a rage-filled state, and there's no telling what kind of consequences this may have on him going forward. The symbol of peace needed to put an end to this, and quickly. He didn't know how long he could last. With that, the man charged forward and started fighting Nomu, their fists blurring as they fought. "Perish!" With a roar, Izuku dove at Nomu's head and took away the majority of its power, causing it to slow down. "Young Midoriya, no, stay away from Bra," the man had previously attempted to warn his mentally ill student. Sklurk. When the boy's clawed hand slashed Nomu's head with a powerful air blade, the hand buried itself in the creature's head, causing Nomu to stand motionless and register the sensation of something being buried in its head before going limp. "Here's my chance," All Might thought, bringing his fist back and preparing another blow. "Hey villain, remember these words. Because I'm going to reveal their true meaning to you. Take it further, plus ultra AAAAA. The blonde screamed as he struck Nomu's body with such force that he was flung out of the building and disappeared over the other side of the horizon. After resolving that, he focused on Izuku, whose angry gaze was penetrating his very being. "Ask for retribution. They took her away from me. I will kill them all because I will never forgive." As Kurogiri opened a portal to allow Shigaraki to approach and attack them both, he uttered those words before letting out another scream of rage. "I'll murder you, Bo," he began to say earlier. Bam! Izuku charged at All Might and engaged him in combat, with the older of the two attempting to hold the younger in a headlock before the green-haired boy threw Shigaraki back towards his warping companion with a backhand. "Stop worrying, young Midoriya. Get out of it." As he continued to try to calm the irate teenager without attacking him, the older man yelled. As the force of One for All blasted gale force winds everywhere around them, the boy refused to listen and continued to scream. "Young Midoriya, I understand how you must feel. I know, I assure you. I experienced the same feelings of grief, despair, sadness, anger, hatred, fear, and regret when my master and predecessor were killed by a powerful villain," his teacher informed him. "You're not alone, my boy, I know that all too well. I've been in your position before, so I understand your suffering." Quote. He was pleasantly surprised when Izuku paused in response to his words, breathing heavily and staring at him intently. The energy surrounding him gradually began to fade, and then the green-haired immortal began to shake wildly as he suddenly began to breathe shakily and even cry, which is unusual for the normally calm Izuku. "Young Midoriya, it's okay." With the villains, Shigaraki managed to shakily stand up and then began to scratch his neck uncontrollably while glaring at the heroes with unadulterated rage in his eyes. "I've got you," the man said softly to his upset student. You, he growled. "You duck everything," he roared, and All Might flinched as he turned and gave him a fierce glare. As he felt his hero form slipping, he thought, unfortunately, this isn't over, not by a long shot. And I'm running out of time. This did not appear to be good. All Might kept trying to calm Izuku, who was still shaking uncontrollably, while Shigaraki and Kurogiri gaped in shock at what had happened to their secret weapon. Shigaraki was so furious at the moment that he began to shake and scratch his neck wildly. He thought angrily, damn it, All Might isn't as weak as we were told at all. They cheated, they all cheated. What's wrong? Didn't you say you were going to finish this level earlier? All Might mocked. Come on, attack me now. He took a step forward and kept taunting, but a very familiar-looking steam began to emerge from him. Shigaraki felt a shock of terror come over him, and he stepped back and stopped scratching. Crap, We will never be able to defeat Nomu before the pros show up without him. He uttered those words. Calm down, Tamura Shigaraki. The man with the hand covering did so after the mist villain whispered, look at him. He's obviously shaking and over his limit. If we move fast, we still have a chance to destroy him, the warping villain continued. Shigaraki glanced at the symbol of peace and saw the signs his comrade was talking about. They could accomplish this if they acted fast. As the two prepared to attack, he said, well then, let's end this. All Might felt his muscle form slipping and thought, crap, not good, not good. But as he did, he saw that Izuku was no longer there. Looking up, he saw that his student was holding Uraili by the neck, and that his grip was becoming more and more tight by the second. Look, Uraili, I am aware of how your quirk functions and that you have applied it to her. Let Ochako go from your soul link right now. The boy with the green hair snarled. And why would I do that, would I? The snake-like villain's grip tightened as he choked out. As the woman's face began to turn blue, he responded icily, because it's the only way I can finally rid myself of this greed of mine, and it's the only way you'll be able to leave this place today, alive. The other two villains were unable to stop Izuku's actions, so everyone else could only watch. Bakugo, how do you think Midoriya is avoiding being seen right now? Shoto asked the blonde a question. He probably stole their perception. He was able to remove so many of them earlier because of that, the boy said. Then perhaps we could help capture those other villains while the main two are preoccupied with All Might, and leave the rest to Midoriya. The boy with two complexions suggested. Kirishima activated his quirk and nodded, saying, sounds good to me. Yeah, alright, but don't think you can boss me around, ya icy hot bastard. Bakugo argued. Somewhere else, Tada, Su, and Uraraka were attempting to accompany Aizawa to the entrance, but they were encountering obstacles because Uraraka was still weak. King placed her on his transforming pillow and said, here sis. He also said, you need to rest, just ride on here for now. Okay, the zero-gravity girl sighed, snoring away in the most adorable way imaginable as she slowly drifted off to sleep on the pillow. Ribbit, I hope Izuku is okay, man, Suyu said worriedly. King nodded, saying, me too. Somewhere else. Jiro tried to prepare her earphone jack for an attack, but the villain was smarter than they had expected, and they were in trouble now. In the landslide zone, Kaminari had just managed to get himself captured by an electric-type villain who survived his all-out discharge attack that fried his brain. Momo thought angrily, damn it, he's got us cornered. But before the man could harm them, there were gunshots, and the villain dropped Kaminari while screaming in agony after 2 bullets were fired into his shoulders. What was that? Jiro pondered bewilderedly. The Western hero, Snipe, a true cowboy hero, was the one who had just rescued Kaminari, and the entrance doors in the distance opened to reveal Iida, who had returned with all the teachers. Everybody, your class representative is back. And I brought reinforcements, shouted Iida, quote. The boy had just used Uraili as a flailing weapon to knock the man away before he could touch All Might back with Izuku, All Might, and Shigaraki. Unfortunately, he found himself in the deteriorating grasp of said villain as he attempted to keep Uraili in an arm headlock. Shall we examine the strength of your healing factor? As Izuku's skin gradually deteriorated and his healing factor resisted, he laughed. Joke's on you, friend. I'm immortal thanks to my quirk, which isn't just healing but also eternal youth. In order to shoot Shigaraki in both arms and legs from the entrance, the boy spat as he kneed him hard in the stomach and caused him to stumble backwards, directly into Snipe's line of sight. Kurogiri stopped any further action by attempting to teleport away, and he attempted to grab Uraili, but Izuku swiftly jumped back to escape his reach. Oh no, don't, I will not allow you to reclaim her. After the boy snarled, 13 let loose a black hole in an attempt to suck Kurogiri up, but they managed to escape. As Uraili lost consciousness, Izuku turned back to her and began shaking her. Awaken, damn it, wake up, he called out, but received no answer, so he threw her to the ground and yelled in frustration. After returning to his feeble form, All Might said to him, you bought me a vital few seconds, thank you. Calm down, young Midoriya. Once again, you saved me, he continued. Quote. No problem, the boy replied with a sigh before they saw Kirishima approaching. Hi, Midoriya, are you alright, man? The boy ran over to them and called. Oh crap, he's gonna learn about my secret. The two thought in terror before the red-haired boy was abruptly cut off by a wall that rose up. A hero who resembled a block of cement told Kirishima, "For your own safety, young man, please go to the entrance with your classmates." The redhead turned around and ran back to the others, nodding, "Oh, okay." "Hey guys," they said to head back to the entrance. He summoned Shoto and Bakugo. Thank heavens. Izuku collapsed on his butt in exhaustion and let out a sigh of relief. "I appreciate that, Cementos, you saved my ass," the blonde said to his colleague. "No issue. There's also the fact that I'm a little fan." The cement bender shrugged. Cementos. His peculiarity. Cement. He is a true master of the concrete jungle because he can work with any cement he comes into contact with, Mike explained. Izuku sighed as he stood up and started to head for the door, but his body suddenly became so heavy that he collapsed on his face. He moaned, "Ow," and managed to say, "I think I strained myself." His mentor said, "That doesn't even begin to cover it." Later, "Well, aside from one or two of you, no one seems to be in any serious harm," said the detective as the police gathered everyone outside. The man looked at Uraraka, who was still attempting to rest on Chastiful, and said, "Just the boy whose body was too strained. And you, are you sure you're feeling okay?" Quote, "Yes," the girl responded with a yawn, "just feeling tired is all." She quickly made an unsuccessful attempt to shake it off, "But what about Deku?" With concern, she inquired. "Yes, Midoriya is where?" "What had happened to him?" Iida asked. "He overexerted himself during the battle." Ochako sighed in relief when the detective said, "He's with Recovery Girl getting treated." Mr. As multiple other police officers abruptly began to arrive at the scene with a restrained Nomu, one of them called, "We've captured one of the bad guys. He hasn't spoken, but he hasn't made an effort to resist," he continued. King muttered, "Probably because Izuku lobotomized him. Is he even able to talk?" Without hearing the boy's whisper, the detective pondered. The same officer said, "We're unsure of that, sir. Anyway, allow the children to return to campus. They've endured an incredible ordeal today," the detective said. "Yes, sir." The officer gave a nod. "Give me up. Refrain from touching MMPH." As everyone left, Uriah screamed before being pushed into the back of a cruiser and given a muzzle. Somewhere else, the healing hero had just finished treating All Might and Izuku, who were lying on hospital beds in Recovery Girl's nurse's office. All Might moaned, "I can't be sure, but I think I shortened my time limit again." He heard his pupil sigh, "Well, that blows. Since you ended up here, I suppose I can't really chastise you." The medic sighed, "You had a pretty nasty fight with those villains at the USJ. We ran into your old sidekick in there." Izuku replied sternly, "She's soul linked to Uraraka, I just figured it out." Quote, "I had hoped she hadn't turned to villainy, but I can see that was wishful thinking," Recovery Girl moaned. "I could have gotten that bitch to break her link if we had just spent a few more minutes together." "Damn it, damn it, damn it," the boy yelled, clenching the sheets in his fists. "I was very near," he had previously cursed. Smack, "Ow, what on earth?" As the irritated Recovery Girl's clipboard struck the boy's head, he grumbled. "Now put an end to that." The boy looked down and away from her as she reprimanded him, saying, "I know you want to help your friend, but beating yourself up over it isn't going to help anyone." With a reluctant sigh, he said, "Yeah, you're right." Somewhere else, Shigaraki, blood seeping from his gunshot wounds, crawled out onto the floor as Kurogiri teleported back inside the bar. "Ow, shot in the legs and arms. Even worse, we lost Uriah and Nomu all at once. And All Might wasn't weakened at all, he's just as strong as he's always been," the man-child grumbled. "Master, you were completely mistaken." Quote. A voice from a monitor said, "We weren't wrong, we just weren't as prepared as we should have been. If nothing else, we failed under that cheesy League of Villains name rather than our real one. What became of the creature that the Master and I created? Nomu, where are you?" An additional voice inquired. "Unfortunately, we had to part ways with him. I couldn't get him back without knowing his location at the time," Kurogiri said. "What? How did this occur?" the second voice inquired. "All Might was responsible. He was blown away by him and a boy who had a power-stealing and immortality quirk of some kind. Described how the living portal works." Quote, "I apologize, did you just mention that the boy who was attacked had a power-stealing and immortality quirk?" Inquiring as to whether they were merely hearing things, the first voice asked. "Indeed, that brat continued to threaten to kill us because I had Nomu attack a girl Uriah was connected to." That brat, that brat. He was furious. He became a beast and almost killed us. Everything was ruined by him. My quirk didn't even work on him either, Shigaraki swore. Quote. After that, we'll need to watch out for him going forward. He could prove to be a potent threat to us, otherwise. The first voice declared. Regardless, do not be discouraged, Tamura. Take this as a learning experience for the future. Get the villainous elite and keep developing so you can become your own symbol. That is the path I have set for you. The voice added as Shigaraki glared at the screen. Somewhere else, who knew that All Might had a friend in the police force? Izuku said as he left the nurse's office slowly. He wondered aloud as he stepped out of the school where he saw Iida, King and Uraraka waiting for him. Hey, Izuku, feeling okay after, well, today overall? King inquired. As okay as I can be. The fox Sin shrugged before walking to Uraraka. Are you okay? He asked her with concern filling every inch of his face. Yes, I've recovered okay, but, what are we gonna do about my connection to Uraili? She asked in worry for her existence. Though it soon turned to surprise when Izuku hugged her close to his toned body. I'll take care of that, so don't worry about it. You just worry about staying out of trouble for me, okay? The gravity girl blushed at the sensation of his muscles, but she still leaned into his embrace as he told her. Yes, she sighed contentedly. Uraraka's twin merely sighed and rolled his eyes as Iida and King exchanged glances, the bespectacled boy grinning. Somewhere else, a man crouching outside the city on a water tower, his scarf and mask fluttering in the wind, a bumpy tongue sliding across his lips as he gazed down on the city below. On the prowl was the hero killer. Izuku was in his room at the Midoriya family's house, huddled in his chair, watching the first video of All Might that had been shot during his debut. Although the students caught in the fighting knew it was a serious matter, the day after the USJ attack was a respite. Izuku chose to unwind as much as he could without complaining. However, that did not imply that he had no thoughts. It's unbelievable that I allowed Uraili to elude me. That's where I ought to have stopped her. As he sat on his bed and lifted his weights, the boy thought angrily. His mother knocked on the door after a few minutes. Izuku entered the room and said, "It's lunchtime. Your food is getting cold." He stood up and said, "Oh, coming." He began eating as soon as he sat down, and his mother noticed his distressed look. Her question to him was, "Is something the matter, honey?" He paused to collect his thoughts before responding. Still resentful of the experience, he explained, "I wanted her to release the bond, but she wouldn't. During the USJ attack, I learned how Ochako was still alive. She was, and still is, soul linked to a villain that's been captured." Given how her son behaved toward the woman he loved, Inko inquired. "What did you do to try and convince her?" His mother winced as the immortal sighed. "I was ready to kill her, if it came down to that." "Izuku," she said softly as she took his hand. "I can't stand it. I can't stand the thought of the life of the woman I love being in the hands of some heartless psychopath." He grumbled. As a bright spot, the woman said, "Well, at least she's in prison." Izuku grinned after letting out a sigh. He nodded and said, "Yeah, at least there's that." Later, as they waited for class to begin, everyone in Class 1A at UA was chatting casually about various topics. Kaminari sat back in his seat and attracted the attention of the children nearby by saying, "I still can't believe how Midoriya went crazy like he did. Yeah, that was insane. I didn't even know that level of anger was possible." Sato grinned. When Tokiyami crossed his arms, he remarked, "The heart can make one do incredible things when put through hell." Momo sneered in contempt, "I'm just glad that the woman who cursed Uraraka is behind bars. Absolutely despicable." Shoto nodded in agreement, saying, "I must agree with that. That woman truly is vile." As everyone began discussing who would cover the class, Izuku snarled, "You have no idea." The frog girl caught Mina as she nearly fell back, and she said, "Hey Sue, since Aizawa-sensei is injured, who's gonna teach class?" Sue remarked thoughtfully, "I'm not sure. Mr. Aizawa is still recovering, Ribbit." Tenya entered at that precise moment. "Everyone, it's almost time for class to begin. Stop talking and get to your seats," he yelled. Kirishima remarked, "We're already seated. You're the only one who isn't." The speed team clenched his fists at the awkward moment he set himself up for and went to his seat as a result. "Dang it," he sat down and yelled. Uraraka grinned and said, "Don't worry." Just as Aizawa entered the classroom wearing a bandage and still obviously hurt. Through his face wraps, the man said, "Good morning, class." Everyone recognized it right away. Aizawa-sensei. They cried out in shock. Wide-eyed, Mina said, "I thought you'd still be recovering." "I'm glad to see that you're okay, Mr. Aizawa," Iida responded. The man walked in front of the class and declared, "My well-being is irrelevant." Everyone became tense as he continued, "What is important is that you all know that your fight isn't over yet." Tada begged, "Please don't tell me it's as bad as the USJ attack." Bakugo yelled, "Shut up and grow a pair, King." Izuku growled and said, "Both of you shut up." Everyone yelled in relief as the Erasure Hero announced, "The UA Sports Festival is coming up." They yelled, "Why would you scare us like that?" After that, Kirishima exclaimed, "Okay, let's go kick some ass," before Kaminari touched the redhead's face. The blonde said, "Hold up, are you sure that's a good idea?" The younger Uraraka sibling added, "Yeah. The villains could attack us while we're in one place. The festival is one of the school's biggest events, second to only the Olympics in scale and ratings. We were never going to cancel it because of some villains," Aizawa stated to them. The green-haired immortal guessed nonchalantly, "I assume security is getting beefed up considerably due to the attack." His homeroom teacher gave this a nod. "That it is. In comparison to previous years, security is getting increased to ensure absolute safety," he said. Then King pointed to his sister and said, Not that I don't understand where you're coming from, but why can't we cancel it? It's just a sports festival. Plus, my sister almost died. This seems kinda insensitive," he continued. Izuku nodded and said, "I second that." Aizawa exhaled deeply. "I won't deny that what happened was a problem, but unfortunately we can't cancel it because of the significance it has to your futures as heroes. Right, agencies from all over will be watching for people to scout." Momo gave a nod. "Yeah, once a student graduates they often go to an agency to be a sidekick if they do well," Kaminari replied. Jiro shrugged and turned to face Kaminari. "Yeah, but that's as far as some go. They missed their chance to go indie and stay eternal sidekicks. Actually that's probably where you're going. You're kinda dumb," he replied. "Gah," he squawked, his eyes wide. Izuku rolled his eyes. He was aware of her personality. Jiro was a good fit for the type of girl who is cruel to the guy she likely likes or who is just a huge bitch. Exactly. You'll get one chance a year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can miss this festival. Aizawa gave a wink. "So you better not slack off on your training," he issued a warning. "Right," exclaimed the class. But before departing, the Erasure Hero declared, "Class dismissed." He said to the Sin of Greed, "Midoriya, stay here, we need to talk." Izuku arched an eyebrow and approached his desk. "What's up?" he put it. "I heard about what happened. I just want to know if you're okay mentally. Seeing someone you're close to almost dying a second time, losing yourself in your own anger and having the woman who cursed said friend slip through your fingers must be hard for you to handle," his instructor said openly. The immortal let out a frustrated sigh. "I am still very much sour about it, I won't deny it. I had her right there, and she just slips out of my grasp." He growled prior to sighing. He whispered, "At least she's been imprisoned." Aizawa said, "Right, but I'm more concerned with that form you took. I want to be sure that from now on, you won't allow yourself to get that angry again, understand? Keep your emotions in check, that's a big part of being a pro." He went on. "I can't make any promises, but I'll do my damnedest to make sure to keep myself in check." The kid nodded. The hero told him, "Good. Now go, and good luck in the festival." Izuku nodded and departed, saying, "Thanks." Later, Izuku, King, Iida, and Ochako were heading to the cafeteria for lunch. King stopped floating when the boy said, "Hey Ochako, I'm curious, how's your parents' construction company doing?" He began to say, It hasn't been doing so well." Uraraka concluded, "Which is why I'm trying to use my career as a hero to help them." "Seriously, why not just use your quirk to float everything so they can sell the heavy lifting equipment?" The Fox Sin responded. She pointed at him and said, "That's exactly what I was gonna do." Before scowling, "But my parents don't want me to work for them. They want me to focus on my dreams first," she went on. Izuku had to sigh in frustration and make a facepalm. "Ochako, I respect and love your parents, but them not letting you help them when you want to, is asinine." He sighed. Iida frowned slightly and nodded, saying, "That last part is not how I would have phrased it, but I must agree." Uraraka sighed. Yeah, then All Might showed up. The symbol of peace exclaimed, ha ha. Young Midoriya is here. As he suddenly materialized, everyone turned to stare at him as a result. Izuku said, hey All Might, what's up? To his mentor. The man held up a bento box wrapped in cloth with bunnies on it and said, lunch. You wanna eat with me? PFFFFT. That is so adorable. Ochako laughed uproariously. Later, the green-haired boy sighed and sat down with a deflated All Might, saying, oh, man, I feel lightheaded. What's the matter? Inquired Toshinori. As the man placed some tea in front of him, the boy sighed. The recovery girl wanted me to give her some of my blood, something to do with a healing elixir she wanted to make from it. The man shrugged and said, considering it gave my stomach back, I'm not surprised. Your blood is really powerful because of your quirk, so it's not unreasonable for something like that to happen. He continued. Yeah, but I'm type O+, so I'm only compatible with positive blood types. Izuku murmured. Facepalming at the carelessness the pair unintentionally displayed, the lanky man moaned, I'm type A, which makes me realize we should have checked our blood types back then. As he drank his tea, the boy moaned, oof, big oof. He said, so what did you want to talk about? The blonde informed him, I wanted to let you know that I've cut my time limit to 50 minutes now. And I can only look like All Might for an hour and a half. Shit, spit out the fox sin. Before All Might began to laugh and cough up blood, he began to say, I'm sorry. If I hadn't lost it back then, maybe things would have been. Before he calmed down, he laughed and said, man, you have this compulsive habit of apologizing for everything. We really are alike, aren't we? I also wanted to talk to you about the sports festival. I wanted to see what you had planned since you still can't control one for all fully yet. Actually, remember that weird-ass looking brain villain? I landed a one for all powered punch on him and didn't get any backlash from it. It didn't break my arm, but it didn't hurt him, either. The child responded. Toshinori realized, oh yeah, ya did mention that. Okay, so what was different about that smash in particular? He asked. The boy answered, it was the first time I was using it on a person. His mentor gave a contemplative nod. The blonde nodded and said, I see, looks like you put on the brakes subconsciously to not kill him. Well, that's some kind of progress, plus you seem to be able to channel small percentages in single limbs too. So there's that. The boy nodded, yeah. The man approached the window and said, well, I wanted to tell you that this festival will be something that the pros, no, the entire country will be watching. And I want you to use it to your advantage as your debut. Because you, Izuku Midoriya, are the fledgling symbol of peace, the next All Might. So I want you to go to the festival and proudly say, I am here. He went on. Izuku grinned and nodded, then scowled a little. And I will, but, I'm not sure if I'll do any good. Why would anyone believe that I can save more than one person when I have failed twice to save Ochako? And not to mention, the boy began to babble until All Might collapsed. The man sighed, you are the best at spouting word vomit, kid. Stop talking. The boy shot back angrily, I needed a hobby. I understand your worries. The man told him, I just hope you haven't forgotten how you felt when you finished your training at the beach. I felt the same way when I was your age, but there are two kinds of heroes, those who aim for the top and those who settle, and the differences between them usually determine how well you do in the real world. How can I forget that sense of accomplishment? The immortal let out a longing sigh. Somewhere else, an old man was reading a letter while seated on a couch in an old building. Greetings. The air is warm here, feels like summer is just around the corner. Hope this letter finds you well, sir, in good health and even greater spirits. This semester I took a position as a teacher at UA, that's right, teaching the next generation of heroes. I was hoping to find a worthy successor to inherit my power among the elite students of the school, a powerful student with outstanding test scores and a powerful quirk. However, before I began my tenure at UA, I met a young man. He had lost someone he treasured in the past, and he viewed his quirk as a curse because of it. He showed incredible bravery. He ran headfirst into a situation that caused pros, including myself, to hesitate and saved the life of a classmate. He didn't have a plan of any sort when he acted, but he knew he had to do something. His actions taught me something that day, and they reminded me of the virtues I must embody if I am to call myself a pro. A hero. That's why I was serious when I said to him, young man, you too can become a hero. Afterwards, I told this pupil the secret of my quirk, and proposed that I transfer to him. This ability that's been passed from person to person, cultivated and made stronger. The crystallization of power that binds itself to a courageous heart for the good of those in need. One for all, he accepted without a second thought, and I began training him for the trials he'd need to overcome to be accepted into the hero course at UA High School. Even when he struggled at times with his newfound abilities, he just got back up and kept giving 100% as he tried to harness one for all. I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I think I've found the perfect successor to pass my quirk onto. He's shown me time and again that, in spite of the troubles of his past, he has what it takes to become a true hero. I'm still new to the role of instructor, and there will come a time where I must trouble you every now and then for advice, my old teacher. I'll be counting on your patience and wisdom when that time comes. Until then, Toshinori Yagi, I hope you take care of yourself as the seasons start to change. P.S. If you are interested in my successor, ask him about the peculiarity he had prior to being given one for all. It would be preferable if you heard it directly from him instead of reading this letter. The man set the letter aside while enjoying a taiyaki pastry and a cup of coffee. So, Toshinori found a worthy successor, huh? The man said reflectively to himself. Later, everyone was training like crazy for a few weeks. For instance, Kirishima was training with Bakugo, with whom he had recently become quite close, when the red-haired boy decided to ask him a question that had been bothering him. How did Midoriya get that scar, Bakugo? I didn't think that was possible with his quirk, the boy asked, and the sandy blonde shook his head. As he struggled to find the right words, he began, that's an interesting story, to put in lightly. It goes like this, he added as the story started. Rewind. Hi, Kachan, why won't you show me your awesome pocket knife with a pro-hero theme? As he, Bakugo, and their friends from middle school set up camp in the woods outside their neighborhood, sharing a campfire, Izuku posed the question. Deku, don't try to take it. In a warning tone, Bakugo said, you don't want me to get angry. However, he quickly had to seize the knife when Izuku attempted to take it after the immortal slipped past him using Zero Sign's prototype move, Phantom Hunt. Furious, Kachan, you, as he attempted to take the knife, the boy smiled mischievously and said, I've known you since we were little kids, and, angry, wasn't even an emotion you showed. The exploder said, let go. The immortal purred, but since you've piqued my interest, it makes me wanna see you angry, actually. One of the other children said, Midoriya, I'm not sure that's a good idea, with concern. I want this knife even more if stealing it is the only way to get your ire. No, I feel like stealing it. As he withdrew the knife from its scabbard, the fox Sin smiled until. Schlick, Izuku did not fall, but he was sent skidding back, the wound on his neck bleeding heavily, as Bakugo pulled out the pocket knife faster than anyone could react and slashed at the left side of his neck. It appears that I have discovered Kachan's secret side. The immortal smiled and sang as he touched his bleeding wound. End of flashback. Kirishima exclaimed, whoa, that's hardcore. Her surprise. Explain it to me. The blonde nodded, then shuddered. I couldn't sleep well for a few days after the tongue lashing I received from both my mom and Deku's mom. His wound healed up, but I didn't realize that it'd give him a scar at the time. The redhead shook his head and said, dude. Later that day. The day before the sports festival, everyone was ready to head home, but Class 1A was obstructed by a crowd of students at their classroom entrance. What on earth is happening? The class immortal raised an eyebrow in question. Yes, are you guys attempting to delay our arrival at home? King questioned angrily. They are researching the competitors. As Bakugo stepped forward, he said, well, now you know what future pros look like, now move it, extras. They want to see how strong we are because we were attacked by villains. You cannot simply call strangers, extras. Iida cried out. Yes, Izuku sighed, Kachan, there's no reason to make enemies of other students. As he walked up to them, a purple-haired boy who was as shabby as Mr. Aizawa said, well, I came to see what the other classes were like, but you just sound like an ass. Are all the hero course students delusional, or just you? He asked more questions. What's wrong with him? Sue inquired bewilderedly. How regrettable to discover that there are a lot of egotists in this class. I wanted to enroll in the hero course, but I had to pick a different path because of certain circumstances. That's just life, the boy sighed. Are you looking at the competition? The teachers have the option to move us into the hero course and move others out to make room if we perform well in the sports festival, but perhaps my peers are. Therefore, take this as a declaration of war. If you don't give it your all, I'll take your place from under you. This final statement nearly immediately enraged the sin of greed. Friend, what gives you the impression that we'll just let it happen? If anyone is going to steal around here, it's going to be me, he growled as he approached the boy and stood taller than him. The teen with the purple hair gave Izuku a weary glance and said, I know you. Izuku the undead is you. Greed, the fox sin. When you were hit by a truck at full speed and sent flying face first into a brick wall, you made headlines. You ought to have perished, but you chose not to. Izuku nodded and said, yeah, that was me. How do you manage to survive things that others cannot? The boy asked, it doesn't make sense. Genius, my peculiarity. What else might it be? As he pushed past them, the immortal gave a rhetorical response. The following day, as everyone prepared for the start of the school festival the following day, Mina grumbled, man, I was really hoping I could wear my costume. She was examining her tracksuit. Not everything is negative, Ojiro said, at least there's a sense of equality like this. This is incredibly nerve-wracking. Uraraka moaned. Sato went on, no kidding. Tokiyami said, we must persevere despite any challenges. Shoto came up to Izuku, who had been silent the entire time. Midoriya, said the two-toned boy, and the green-haired teen craned his head and looked at him. What is it? His tone was casual as he asked. The pyro and cryomancer declared, I think it's safe to say that I'm better than you from an objective standpoint. There are many people who are superior to me. What are you trying to say? Izuku inquired, unconcerned with that minor detail. Izuku responded with a savage smirk. You have All Might helping you out, also I've seen what you're capable of when the ones you love are threatened, Shoto said, glancing subtly at Uraraka. Regardless, I'm not here to pry about what's going on between you two, but know that I will beat you. Shoto glared back at the immortal, who said, looking forward to the fight. The immortal then got personal, saying, when I make your face become very well acquainted with the ground. Later, as Present Mike announced the classes, everyone was going outside, but then they all gathered around a stage where the R-rated hero, Midnight, was standing in all of her BDSM bombshell sex. Everyone, please keep quiet. The woman brandished her flogging whip and called. Kirishima blushed and remarked, well, someone ought to speak with Miss Midnight about her attire. Yes, there ought to be a warning about that costume, Kaminari swallowed. I have to concur, that attire is inappropriate for such an occasion. Tokiyami nodded, his blush concealed by his feathers. Izuku, on the other hand, appeared unconcerned, as though he couldn't give a damn about how Midnight looked, while King, meanwhile, was prevented from fainting by falling back on his pillow as Sue attempted to fan him off. He glanced at his gravity-controlling childhood sweetheart and thought, she can dress up however she wants. I got my eyes fixed on someone else. We have Katsuki Bakugo for the student pledge. Bakugo stepped up to the podium as Midnight called. Knowing where this was headed, the fox Sin moaned, oh boy. The explosive blonde stood at the microphone for a moment without saying anything. He said, I just wanna say, I'm gonna win this. The rest of Class 1A thought, I knew he would say something like that, as the crowd began jeering him. Izuku facepalmed and mentally yelled, damn it, Kachan. The games then started. Before the screen appeared, Midnight uttered the words, and now, the first fateful game of the festival is, an obstacle race. The 4 kilometers around the school will be raced here, and you will meet again. Regarding quirk use, the woman went on, I don't want to restrict anyone, at least in this game. She then licked her lips and smiled sensuously, saying, you can do anything you want as long as you stay on the track. The sin of greed awoke and grinned at her exclamation. Oh, this race is going to be so much fun. Everyone prepared to run as Izuku murmured excitedly. What do you think we should watch out for at the beginning of this race, Eraserhead? Mike questioned Aizawa. He was told by Aizawa, the doorway. The race began a few seconds later, and the two men were off as they kept commentating. Zero sign. Izuku said this as he jumped over everyone's heads, stole their perception, and used his staff to extend his snatch powers. This allowed him to get to the front of the race before everyone's senses returned, and by that time, he was already far ahead. Midoriya, don't think I'll give you such an easy victory. The word, most, was used to describe how Shoto made a lot of ice for himself to skate on, leaving the majority of the other students frozen at the feet. Well done, Todoroki, Momo shouted. You icy hot bastard, you can't defeat me. Bakugo let out a roar. Yee-haw, King chuckled while gliding over the ice on his spear. Then all of a sudden, bam, Izuku caught the grisly sin as he flew to the ground, but when he turned to face the criminal, he saw a familiar image. The exam's robotics. You're fucking me, he exclaimed in exasperation, and then saw several zero-pointers. Oh come on, he shouted. Where did they find the funds to purchase these items? Momo looked around cautiously and wondered. So this is the thing my classmates had to face in the entrance exams. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they made something more difficult, Shoto said, sighing as he watched Izuku rush ahead and then at the robots. Particularly with my beloved old father looking on. Izuku was directly in front of one of the bots, falling paths as they fell forward after he sent ice at them in a single move, freezing them in place and throwing them off balance. Previously, the immortal said, "Oh for fuck's sake." Boom. The two-tone fire ice user noticed that he was crushed beneath the giant robot and actually appeared concerned. He began to say, "Did I just," but Izuku suddenly emerged from the robot's side and gave him a grumpy glare. "For that, I'm going to fucking get back at you." He did not like that a huge robot was falling on him, so he screamed angrily. It was getting juicy at the sports festival. The obstacle race. Unfortunately, Izuku was directly beneath one of the zero-point robots that fell over due to Shoto's ice attack. Before it landed on top of him with a loud boom, he said, "Oh shit." Shoto stopped and gazed at the scene, looking slightly alarmed. Whoa, with a devastating display, it appears that Class 1A's Shoto Todoroki just stopped one of those robots. Mike declared. And unintentionally crushed a couple more. But I can't tell who, Aizawa said. Shoto asked out loud, "Did I just?" As everyone stared at the fallen robot in horror and mild relief as Kirishima and Tetsu emerged from it, fortunately unscathed. They weren't alone, though, because a few seconds later Izuku punched his way out of the robot and gave him a grumpy look while he replaced some of the lost flesh. "For that, I'm going to fucking get you back. I don't like that a robot fell on me," he screamed. However, when he attempted to exit the robot, he discovered that his arm was stuck inside due to a metal fragment that had pierced it. With a sigh, the boy simply pointed at his elbow while channeling 15% of One for All, and karate chopped his arm off completely, much to the dismay of the other students and onlookers. Did he just cut off his arm? With wide eyes, a member of Class 1B exclaimed. Look, hold on. The audience was somewhat relieved when the camera focused on his stump, which was clearly growing a new arm, and a girl with vines for hair yelled as she pointed at it. Everyone sighed in relief when Momo said, "He has a high healing factor, so no need to worry about him." As he unzipped and threw away his track jacket, the immortal sighed and began chasing after Shoto, stealing the speed of those nearby. However, he was confronted by a group of 2 one-pointers and 2 two-pointers. The boy grinned, used one for each of his legs, and then sped forward, using Snatch with his staff to quickly steal their cores. "Crazy hunt," he yelled as the robots blew up behind him. "Wow, now that's taking out the trash, the Midoriya way." Present Mike cried out with joy. Everything is stolen by his quirk, including manifestations from other quirks and physical characteristics from other people and objects. He can also use it to pull things towards him and pull himself towards other things or people. Aizawa commented, "As simple as it may be, it's very versatile." He added. The fans cheered at the fact that a quirk like Izuku's exists. "Man, that kid's got quite a bit going for him, doesn't he?" Snipe said. "Yeah, but he's still gotta work on that self-serving side of his, he's got way too much of a possessive streak in him." Chimed in Power Loader. "That's simply his own personality quirks." All Might reassured them, "He knows how to show restraint, you don't have to worry about that." Somewhere else, at the Midoriya household, Inko was watching the festival and she honestly was close to having a heart attack when she saw Izuku get crushed by that robot and seeing him so casually cut off his own arm. "Izuku, darling, don't give your mom a heart attack," she complained, but when he developed a new arm, she was able to stop. In the interim, they continued to run with the students until they came to a chasm with ropes connecting them and stone columns positioned at random intervals. Izuku began searching his mind for inspiration upon seeing this, and then he saw King riding up to him on his spear. "Would it be okay if I hitched a ride on Chastiful with you, King?" The boy was asked by Fox Sin. "Hop on, I got room for one more, anyway." He shrugged. Thanks, Izuku said before the two flew off, though as they started gaining on Shoto, Bakugo came out of nowhere and started chasing them in midair. This race is not going to be won by either of you. The detonator shouted. Insert a sock into it. The green-haired boy shot back as he stole Bakugo's balance and made him briefly spiral before regaining it. Well, here's my stop. Later, while they were still in the air, he informed Tata before he leapt off. Izuku, wait, don't go at this. Tata tried to yell before. Crack, Izuku landed directly on his head, hurting it and breaking his neck in the process. He died instantly because he misjudged his decent speed and direction. Should we call this off? Present Mike asked in an unsure tone. Wait for it, the erasure hero answered. Izuku leapt to his feet and felt a jolt of pain. Oi, he gasped before stretching. Man, dying can give you such a crick in the neck. Hang on a second, he said before he started turning his head completely around a couple times and then shaking it. Ah, much better, he sighed. Well, I guess that's one way to show that you're immortal. The radio show host sighed. Shoto and Bakugo, who had arrived at the scene, took a moment to facepalm at his words. Tell me, Bakugo, does he always act like this? The two-toned boy asked in exasperation. Yeah, he does. You get used to it after a while. The exploder sighed. As he resumed his run, Shoto thought, I feel like that should be a bad thing. It kinda is. Katsuki nodded as he started flying again. Oi, you two, come back here. As he began to run, the immortal yelled after them, but as they kept chasing one another. Kaboom! Several people were sent flying thanks to the unexpected appearance of mines in a minefield straight ahead of them. Hope you contestants are really because you're stepping onto a minefield. Mike called, but these were made for the games so they're not that powerful, just enough to make you wet your pants. Quote. The green-haired boy hummed as he looked at what he was presented with before a light bulb went off in his head. Aha! He got out before he started digging up mines and piling them up. After he got a considerable amount of them gathered he then leapt towards them and slammed himself into them back first, which made a massive explosion occur due to him putting all his weight into it. Wow, what caused that explosion? It's even bigger than the normal mines. Present Mike exclaimed in surprise. Back on the minefield, everyone looked in surprise at the blast, which grew greater when they saw a familiar immortal flying over their heads. I believe I can fly, oof. He flew past Shoto and Katsuki while singing with a huge smile on his face. Then, with a loud splat, he crashed face first into one of the walls of the entrance gate leading back to the school and collapsed to the ground. You think he'll be alright? Shoto called out to Bakugo as he navigated the minefield. I've seen him get up from that before. He'll be fine. The Pomeranian blonde nodded. Would it be too much to ask him to stop doing that? Uraraka exclaimed in irritation. How should we be reacting at this point? After all, he has already died and recovered, so should we really be worried about him now? I was usually more excited for this kind of thing, but watching a competitor die and get up from it twice tended to mess with your flow, the blonde sound hero said, massaging his temples. My rule of thumb when dealing with Midoriya's antics are, try and at least find some levity in how absurd the ways he gets injured usually are. Makes it easier to find it amusing rather than annoying. Aizawa shrugged as he smirked under his bandages, causing many to mutter to each other in agreement. It would help them cope. Well, there you have it folks. Eraserhead isn't a terrible teacher. Present Mike announced, causing the audience to laugh. What? Hold on. The erasure hero asked as he did a double take. At that precise moment, the green-haired boy sprang back up with a head shake, and as the others began to close in on him, he began to wobble dizzily through the tunnel to the arena. However, he stumbled and ended up tucking and rolling into the stadium, landing face first on the ground. He moaned as he sat up and realized that he was apparently in first place. Ow. Note to self, never do that again. Oh, cool, he shrugged. He had no reason to get hyped over the position. After this, one after the other, everyone poured into the stadium, and as they all came in, Izuku was approached by Uraraka. Before the immortal could say anything, smack, she suddenly slapped him, an irritated expression on her usually cute face. Izuku stared back at her with wide eyes while others looked on in surprise. He managed to utter. Would it literally be too much for you to quit getting yourself injured and killed, mister? Are you trying to give me as heart attacks? For crying out loud, would you tone down the dying already? She ranted in frustration. Hey, when I have the ability to literally not have to worry about dying, I'm gonna spam it. It's just how I do things. The boy shrugged before he was suddenly pulled into a headlock by his childhood sweetheart. That doesn't mean we don't worry about you, idiot, she exclaimed as she held his head. Meanwhile, with all might, he watched his pupil with a proud gaze. If I'm being honest, young Midoriya, I thought that your tendencies to greedily want everything you can get your hands on while simultaneously trying to be there for your friends would have been your downfall, since those usually are one or the other. The blonde thought before clapping his hands. Turns I was worried for nothing. You can balance both aspects, though maybe cool it with the throwing yourself into death thing. The man thought. You know, Midoriya has some really high durability stats. Someone under the symbol of Peace's booth commented, getting his attention. True, plus with the power-sapping capabilities of his quirk, he could easily be useful for tiring down opponents or stealing hostages in the right circumstances. Another also noted. Though that may also negatively impact his popularity, since his quirk could potentially be called villainous and his non-combatant and possibly greedy and self-centered personality traits could also be off-putting to would-be fans and possible agencies. A third noted. Business course students, some things never change. Toshinori sighed mentally as the boys kept debating market simulations. Back with the students, Midnight called their attention to her and made everyone else turn back towards her. Ochako meanwhile did so while comically still having Izuku in her arms in the same headlock, while the fox Sin equally as comically tried to get free. Come on, Ochako, let me go, he exclaimed as he struggled. The gravity girl seemed to realize this and let him go, which caused Izuku to start trying to regain his breath. Damn, she's strong. When did she get that strong? Does she work out or something? The boy thought. Now if I can have your attention please students, we'll see what the next game will be. Midnight called as the screen slot machine started spinning. What could it be? The waiting is torture. Get yourselves ready for this, she went on. She finished as the screen said, Cavalry battle. A cavalry battle, I'm terrible at those, Kaminari groaned. Cavalry battle, huh, the immortal muttered in slight interest. In this game, only the first 42 will be advancing to the next round, but don't worry, we'll have other games to let you shine. Midnight explained. Each student is assigned a point value that goes up in increments of 5 starting from the bottom. She went on, 42nd place is worth 5, 41st place is worth 10, etc. Seems simple enough, Izuku thought, and the point value given to first place is 10 million. The R-rated hero announced. The points will be given to you based on the place you managed to take in the obstacle race, so with that being said, Izuku Midoriya has 10 million points. She continued. This caused everyone to look at the immortal, and, if one had a certain way of looking at the world, their eyes would be glowing red. In another universe, Izuku would have shied away from the gazes. Here, though, he returned their gazes with glowing green eyes that were filled with greed with a wide vulpine smile. To gather points, the stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up, so the more you get, the harder they will be to manage. Midnight told them. However, there are still rules. Purposefully knock down a team and I'll slap you with a red card. You'll be disqualified, she went on. Knowing that Izuku was practically their ticket to first place, everyone stared at him with red, determined eyes, and it unnerved them as the boy's smile grew even more vulpine and his tongue rolled to the side of his mouth. Be careful, guys, I may attempt to raise my number above its current value. Everyone gulped nervously at his words as he sang while maintaining his smile. You'll select your teammates in 15 minutes. So choose wisely. Now, begin, the woman told them. With that, everyone started looking around for teammates. Though as Izuku tried to rattle off teammate ideas in his head, he noticed that everyone was basically avoiding him. This, needless to say, made things difficult. Well, I did kinda scare them with my little display earlier, so there's that. Who'd be willing to join me in spite of that? He mused internally. Hey, Deku, Ochako said cheerfully as she walked toward him, making the boy flinch a little because of how unexpected she looked. Oh, hey, Ochako, what is going on? After he had calmed down from his little scare, he asked. He blinked at the girl's response, I want us to team up. She shrugged and continued, I mean, it makes sense to team up with the people you've known since childhood. Her words made the boy's heart race, and he clenched his chest. Ochako, he whispered, giving her a quick hug. You're right, it's a good idea to form a team with people you know the capabilities of. He smiled and nodded. Yes, The gravity user gave a nod. You're finally by yourself, hee hee. A voice said behind them. The duo turned and saw a pink-haired girl that had a ton of gadgets on her person grinning ear to ear at the immortal. Team up with me, person in first place. She went on. Who are you? The two questioned. I'm from the support course. Name's Mei Hatsume. I want to take advantage of your current notoriety. The inventor stated. That's straightforward, Izuku said, startled. By joining up with you, everyone will be watching you, which would include my darling little babies to show to CEOs of big support companies. Hatsume spoke as she got rather close to them. And by following that line of reasoning it'll give plenty of chances for me and my marvelous gadgets to get recruited. She continued, abruptly drawing nearer. Whoa, hold on a minute. What was the amount you brought? What? Asked All Might's successor. Ha ha, look and see, the girl said as she opened a box. I'm sure that you'll find something you'll like. She added, for example, I based this off of the jetpack of the Buster hero, Jetstream. She continued as she held up the jetpack. Wait, you based this off Jetstream's jetpack? I love that guy, his high-flying sparkling cider is one of my favorite sodas. Izuku cried with joy, quote, Ooh, I see you're a connoisseur of both hero-themed drinks and heroes. How interesting. As they begin to converse, Hatsume observes, leaving Ochako to observe them with a hint of jealousy in her expression. That's my childhood friend, damn it, she thought enviously, but as they continued to talk, Izuku got another idea. We need another member, and I know just who to talk to. He told the two before they went over to Iida. Iida, the green-haired boy said, getting his friend's attention. Yes, Midoriya, he responded. The immortal said to the bespectacled speedster, I'm going to use an evasive and offensive tactic, and I'll need a mobility-geared quirk like yours to pull it off. Are you game? Did he ask? That sounds like a fine strategy. Iida nodded. But no, he told them before suddenly walking over to Shoto, Momo, and Kaminari. If I want to get better, I can't always follow you. So I am going to compete against you, and I won't hold back. He told him before the group left. Gosh, the Fox Sin swore, but then he saw Fumikage and had another idea. He hummed. Then he approached the bird-headed teenager and put a hand on his shoulder, saying, Hey, I still got one spot open on my team. You in? He made the offer. The bird boy turned to face them as they all smirked together. Later, everyone took their positions as the game began. Students, get ready, Midnight said before a shot was heard. Begin, quote. With the 10 million headband on his forehead, Izuku's team was immediately chased by everyone. And here comes the parade of unwitting idiots. The scarred team said, extending his arms to his side. Zero sign, he said, and all of his team members' perceptions vanished in an instant, leaving them perplexed. Where did he go? What? An invisible figure abruptly grabbed the headband of a Class 1B girl with orange hair in a ponytail as she stammered. A moment later, it was discovered that the person was Izuku, who was using Snatch to draw the headband in the tractor beam style from a distance of several meters. As he tied it to his 10 million headband to serve as a kind of shield, the teenager grinned and said, It is good to be me. Whoa, Class 1B's Kendo team's headband was just stolen by Izuku Midoriya from a great distance. How upsetting, they didn't even anticipate it. Mike remarked. Midoriya operates in this manner. He creates opportunities and takes advantage of them. Be careful, Eraserhead said, nodding. But as Shoji ran towards them, some very familiar push knives began flying out of a hole between his dupli arms, preventing the group from celebrating their victory. I know of only one individual who possesses such weapons. As he attempted to sidestep the weapons, the immortal spoke, but a long tongue abruptly joined the assault. We're going to take that 10 million headband now, Izuku. I'm sorry, Tada called out from under the cover. Tada, as well as Sue. As they hovered back using Hatsume's hover souls, Uraraka gasped, Why you know good little. Feeling betrayed by her brother's antics, she began to yell as Dark Shadow blocked the onslaught. Sis, don't take it personally. You have to win. Suyu's tongue and more knives flew at them as the boy called. All right, people, hide your faces. As he pressed the button to activate the jetpack, the boy said to them, Tokiyami, pay attention to our blind spots. The immortal smiled as he searched for the next headband to grab, but was sadly taken by surprise when Jiro's earphone jacks appeared. Everyone nodded as the jetpack blasted them away and over everyone's head. What the? To their relief and Jiro's slight annoyance, he left before Dark Shadow swatted them away. Gosh, she gave a hiss. Dark Shadow, good job. Watch out for our blind spots. Tokiyami gave his quirk an order. You got it. The pseudo-demon nodded in response. Tokiyami, nice quirk you have there. Hiring you for my team was a really wise move on my part. As the living quirk scanned the area for potential threats, the fox Sin extolled. The teen with the bird's head nodded, yes you did. Izuku was still searching for someone to steal the headband from as they flew when they heard an explosion near their left flank, which could only mean one thing. Deku, give me that headband. Bakugo flew at them with a roar. Will you, Tokiyami? As the group landed following this attack, the green-haired boy used Snatch on his finger to steal the headband of Hagakuri's team and another 1B team. The immortal said this before Dark Shadow blocked Bakugo and caused him to fall back to his team. What the headband, Toru, it's gone. Sato let out a startled cry. What? Oh no, what took place? She went into a panic. Guys, thanks for the headbands. As he and his teammates fled, the fox Sin called out, but Shoto and his teammates' arrival quickly interrupted the group. The boy with the two tones said, I'll be taking that now. Which one? Izuku asked cheekily, causing his teammates to laugh. Shoto's eyebrows briefly raised in response to his snarky query. Somewhere else. In the meantime, Mike and Aizawa noticed a new trend in the competition up in the observation room. Teams were abruptly beginning to stop wearing headbands, as if they were suddenly going out of style. Whoa, take a look. Headbands are being lost by everyone. With 1A's Midoriya on the field, they simply cannot hold on to them. The blonde man grinned and exclaimed. This is the result of allowing the self-described fox Sin of greed to compete. Just throwing that out there, Aizawa said, shrugging. But wait, Team Midoriya hasn't grown past the last couple, and the headbands are going away. Who is taking them if he isn't? The voice hero inquired. When Bakugo returned to the students, a boy from Class 1B and his group abruptly stole his headband. What the? Hello? As his team came to a halt, he let out a bark. As the class faced one another, the team leader said, your class is too narrow-minded, think bigger. You all should have thought about the bigger picture instead of just rushing things blindly. At least that's what our class did. What are you discussing? What? Bakugo asked. The blonde shrugged. After all, only a fool would go all out in the preliminary round, so we all decided to throw the match as a class to see our opponents in action. We knew they wouldn't throw out too many of us in the first round. And why waste time like a horse with a carrot in his face, chasing after a short-term front-runner? To be honest, he added, laughing. At this stage, you'll end up pursuing Deku if your goal is to acquire as many headbands as possible. Isn't the amount he has caught your attention? The detonator laughed. Oh, now I recognize you. Yeah, but with his quirk and the teammates he's got going after him would be too risky. The boy shrugged. He noted, you'll have to tell us about it sometime. You're the one who was apprehended by that sludge villain. You know, I'm willing to wager that it must be peculiar to continually find yourself in the victim role. The Pomeranian blonde gave him a snarky look as tiny explosions exploded in his hands and he exuded an angry aura that made his teammates uneasy. Plans have changed, guys. That smartass is the target of our pursuit. His glare and blood-red aura made those beneath him tremble as he growled. This only serves to demonstrate that it was a dog-eat-dog world, the hero world.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.